A story begins with a boy that are on his journey fueled by a vivid aspiration, facing off against an immense serpent. This dream unfolds just a day prior to his adventure. With remarkable agility, he skillfully evades the serpent's tail whip attack, landing a few meters away from the confrontation. Brimming with confidence, he taunts the serpent, ridiculing its sluggishness with the term maggot. However, his arrogance leads to an unexpected turn of events as the serpent's tail whip strikes him from behind, causing him to collapse. The serpent emits a piercing screech and inflicts significant damage to the boy. His frustration mounts, particularly because his armor's worth rivals that of a starship. Enraged, Boy leaps into the air, launching a flurry of fists in retaliation. Regrettably, his assault proves ineffective against the serpent. Undeterred, he swiftly adapts, drawing his blade from its sheath and imbuing it with magical energy, preparing to confront the serpent once more. With a powerful leap towards the serpent, Boy lands multiple cuts on its body and skillfully slices through its tail as he descends to the ground. However, his overconfidence leads him astray, causing a misstep that sends him stumbling off a cliff. Suddenly, darkness envelops everything, and in the midst of this obscurity, he hears approaching footsteps. As his surroundings remain obscured, a silhouette emerges. A captivating woman stands beside his bed. The boy assumes that this woman is one of his loyal followers, someone who supports the mightiest warriors across the universe. Boy grapples with a sense of profound fatigue and weakness, attributing it to the recent battle he endured. Drawing near to his bedside, the lady unexpectedly leans in, planting a tender kiss on his forehead. As he gazes upon this captivating woman, he can't help but acknowledge her beauty and realizes it's impolite to merely regard her as an object. Driven by an instinctive impulse, he reaches out, drawing her closer to him. However, a sudden revelation dawns upon the boy when he gazes down at his hands and discovers that he has transformed into an infant. Lifting his gaze, he meets the woman's eyes once more, only to realize that she is his mother. In this moment, the boy's true name is unveiled, Errol. Errol contemplates the possibility of reincarnation, and a surge of emotions overwhelms him. Nevertheless, his mother misinterprets his cries, assuming them to signify hunger. As Errol surveys his unfamiliar surroundings, he ponders whether he has undergone reincarnation once more. Keeping track of his past lives, he discerns that this marks his 101st incarnation. Fragmented glimpses of his previous lives emerge, revealing that his initial incarnation was that of a Korean man born in Joseon. During that existence, he led an ordinary life, grappling with everyday concerns such as employment and taxes. This seemingly mundane existence reached its conclusion when Karkwine summoned him to embark on a mission to save another world. Upon awakening, he found himself in the form of an infant, much like his present condition, yet under the care of foreign parents who conversed in an unfamiliar tongue. Thus commenced his eternal cycle of life and death, with each reincarnation propelling him into a new world. Sometimes, these worlds existed within different universes, while other times, they were distinct realms altogether. Each rebirth bestowed upon him a fresh identity, ranging from swordsman to student, scholar, or even an assassin. These diverse experiences molded him into someone entirely adaptable to the relentless cycle. Returning to the present moment, we observe Errol's mother nourishing him as he contemplates his surroundings. Judging from the furniture's style and the room's view, Errol surmises that he must reside in a medieval fantasy realm. Comparing this new setting to his prior life in a futuristic sci-fi world, Errol deems it rather ordinary. The sci-fi world had offered him an easy life, characterized by its pristine, advanced environment. However, he now finds himself thrust back into the Dark Ages, albeit not born into destitution. Errol discerns that he belongs to a thrifty upper-class family, evident from the presence of a maid. While he struggles to comprehend his mother's words and actions, he perceives the affection in her touch and the warmth in her gaze, marking an entirely new experience for him. Previous reincarnations had rarely bestowed upon him the love of a mother who cared for him unconditionally. At times, he had been abandoned immediately after birth, while in other instances, he had been exploited for labor to earn a livelihood. However, this time, a flicker of hope kindles within him. Unexpectedly, the maid addresses Lady Lavanna, revealing his mother's name. She offers to hold the infant prince. Hearing the term prince, Lady Lavanna's countenance darkens, prompting her to question whether others will genuinely acknowledge her baby's royal status. She turns to the maid, named China, seeking confirmation, but China dismisses the notion, leaving Lady Lavanna visibly disheartened. In an attempt to put Sheena at ease, Lady Lavanna assures her that they are alone, and she can speak candidly, given her own past as a maid, which has made her empathetic to the struggles of those in such roles. Nevertheless, Sheena remains reticent. Lady Levana shifts the conversation's course, directing her gaze at baby Errol. She explains to Sheena that Errol carries the title of prince due to his royal lineage, although the reality of his life is far from glamorous, as it is intertwined with her own modest heritage. Lady Levana inquires whether Errol will one day resent her because of this fact. Sheena responds with unwavering certainty that he will not. However, Lady Levana is well aware of the gossip and clandestine discussions among the concubines and nobility behind their backs. This is driven by Errol's lack of inheritance rights and influence owing to his lineage. As Lady Levana's tears well up, Errol extends his tiny hands toward his mother's face, attempting to wipe away her tears. The mood swiftly shifts, with Lady Levana assuming that Errol can understand her and is attempting to console her. However, Sheena chuckles and dismisses the notion as impossible. Contrary to her belief, Errol heard everything and comprehended what was said. He desired to reassure his mother that he would be fine. Errol harbors no ambitions of becoming a successor or gathering followers, and he prefers to avoid drawing attention to himself, even from influential nobles. In his dreams, he envisions a life as a detached prince, removed from the power struggles of the aristocracy. Beginning his 101st life, Errol finds himself in an idyllic setting where life flows easily. His dreams depict him as an indifferent young prince, bearing the blood of the king and royal concubines in his veins. He yearns for a life free from the power conflicts that plague the elite. Meanwhile, Lady Levana and Sheena watch over him. Lady Levana remarks on her child's radiant appearance and wishes she could safeguard Errol's smile. Regrettably, she acknowledges her inability to do so. This word, power, awakens Errol from his reverie, and he ponders why his mother is so concerned. He begins to suck his thumb. Errol privately reflects that in a world dominated by aristocrats, where lineage and social class hold immense importance, being a prince without the prospect of succession feels akin to being a scapegoat with no claim to the throne. He comprehends that he lacks power or the means to protect himself and foresees a bleak future in which he has no one to guide him and believes he is fated to be exploited, ultimately meeting his demise. Errol contemplates his situation and believes that his mother shouldn't be concerned about him because he has confidence in his abilities, having been a professional in his past lives. 3 months pass, and we observe Lady Levana gazing affectionately at the charming Errol as he sleeps. She remarks to herself that he possesses the countenance of an angel. While fixating on Errol, she gently places her hand on his hair and wishes it resembled that of His Majesty. Sheena interrupts the moment by informing Lady Levana that her carriage is prepared. She swiftly plants a kiss on Errol's cheek and advises him to behave before she departs. As Lady Levana exits and the door slams shut, we discover that Errol had been pretending to be asleep, and his act was convincing enough to evoke a small chuckle from him. Realizing the chuckle was louder than intended, he hastily covers his mouth to suppress any noise, just in case Sheena comes to investigate the disturbance. Errol reflects that it's demanding to maintain such charm, particularly as a baby when everyone is watching him. He composes himself and prepares to attempt something a baby typically shouldn't be capable of. Errol recognizes that he doesn't have much time but requires this power for his future security. He adheres to the belief that strength is paramount, and as long as he remains strong, no one will dare challenge him. While continuing to cultivate, Errol reflects on his past lives and how he didn't waste them, especially regarding a method he developed himself, enabling him to strengthen himself even within a baby's body, the origin creation Qigong technique, discovered in his 30th reincarnation. This divine technique enables Errol to train both his innate and origin Kai simultaneously while remaining undetected in his baby form. Errol calculates that he'll accumulate 60 years worth of energy at age 10 and 180 years worth at age 20 using the origin creation Qigong technique. As Errol accumulates enough Kai and advances in his cultivation, he won't require as much focus and can even practice while in Sheena's arms. Errol accelerates his cultivation by utilizing electrical stimulation to move the accumulated Kai to his brain and frontal lobe. As the Kai expands throughout his body, intense heat engulfs his head, causing profuse sweating and signs of discomfort. Errol senses his energy reaching its peak and screams in agony, struggling not to lose control. Hearing the scream, Sheena rushes to Errol's chamber, only to find him still asleep in his crib, wondering if he might need a diaper change. Errol clenches his bedsheet anxiously, fearful that any contact with Sheena could dissipate his accumulated energy. However, as Sheena approaches and checks for a diaper change by sniffing, she detects nothing unusual. Errol's face shows relief as Sheena leaves, suggesting that His Highness must have had a nightmare. As Errol lies in his crib, his energy leaks, turning him into a thermal power source. Despite attempts to contain it, the notion of lethal heat remains, leaving him uncertain about his body's endurance. With clenched fists, Errol summons the courage to endure the overwhelming Kai, determined not to live at anyone's mercy, even if it means risking everything. Using the origin creation Qigong technique, he harnesses its power to transform into a formidable prince and secure a comfortable life for himself. While outside the room, Sheena hears another scream emanating from Errol's bedroom. She enters and finds a perspiring Errol but assumes he's simply enjoying a peaceful slumber. She suggests an herbal bath before departing. Errol stands atop his bed, having successfully undergone a prefrontal lobe hype revolution and appearing completely fine. Following the bath, Sheena cradles Errol in her arms, observing his typical movements and excellent condition. She feels relieved by Errol's cheerful disposition. Errol privately contemplates that Sheena likely possesses no affinity for mana at all. He employs his awakened frontal lobes to detect and absorb mana from the atmosphere, growing stronger through simple activities like eating, sleeping, and lounging around. Errol giggles with delight, looking forward to accumulating a significant amount of energy over 3 years, making him nearly invulnerable by the age of 10. Although Cheetah wonders what has him so amused, she enjoys seeing him smile. Errol continues to gain power and eagerly anticipates the day when he can lead an idyllic life as a prince. A few days later, we witness Errol crawling, a remarkable feat considering he was born only 5 months earlier. His rapid growth, both physically and energetically, can be attributed to the effects of the origin creation Qigong technique. He automatically accumulates energy every day and aspires to eventually levitate when he accumulates enough. Lady Levana picks him up, admiring his adorable playfulness as he entertains himself. She then informs him that she has brought something he might enjoy. Errol's mother offers him a rattle, and although he is unsure how to react, he feigns enthusiasm to please her. She becomes ecstatic, believing he truly enjoys it. Errol acknowledges that his response is fitting, despite his personal disbelief. Sheena comments that His Highness's reaction is flawless, and Errol's mother agrees, stating that she knew he would like it. She assures him that she will make an effort to spend more time playing with him and wonders about the source of his loveliness. Errol privately believes that he obviously takes after his mother. During his childhood, Errol relishes the adoration he receives and expresses his intention to cherish this period. However, his hunger suddenly strikes, and he contorts his face to convey his appetite to his mother and Sheena. Lady Levana assumes he is bored, but Sheena discerns his hunger. They sit down, and as Sheena feeds Errol, Lady Livonia remarks on not having seen Anna around lately. Sheena hesitantly reveals that Anna resigned yesterday. Lady Livonia responds with a simple "I see," acknowledging Anna's bright and intelligent qualities. Sheena notes that it couldn't be helped due to the reduced budget for maintaining the palace this year, making it challenging to pay Anna. Overhearing their conversation, Errol recalls the maids discussing the need to cut down Lady Levana's food portions due to the tight budget, although they also had to consider nutrition. Initially, Errol believed they were simply complaining. Errol's mother mentions that they should be grateful they are not starving, and Sheena adds that they don't have to reduce the number of soldiers. Errol realizes that despite his mother giving birth to a prince, her background as a maid remains an issue. They discuss the problem of winter and the difficulty of self-sufficiency with the prince in their care. Errol reflects that he wouldn't freeze to death since he is a prince but is now uncertain. When Sheena inquires about the king, Errol's mother explains that he is too busy to meet anyone. Errol realizes this is why his mother is often absent from the house. Despite her efforts, she is unable to see the king. Errol finds this situation unacceptable and wonders if his mother is intentionally isolated. He believes that even if the king is indifferent, his mother should still be granted an audience. Errol begins to cry and expresses sympathy for his mother, longing to hug her. Sheena promptly hands the baby over to his mother. Errol brims with hopefulness, eager to assist in any way he can. Despite being just a baby who can only act cute and flip over for now, he resolves to do whatever he can to help. That night, Errol lies in his bed, contemplating the challenge of surviving the winter. They require a substantial amount of money to address the food shortage and need more firewood to keep warm. Errol continues to ponder until he eventually arrives at a solution. Sitting on his bed, he reflects on how to manage the demands of winter, especially considering that necessities like food and firewood require money. After struggling to come up with a solution, Errol suddenly has an idea that may offer a way out of his predicament. Errol gazes at the charcoal resting in the fireplace, reminiscing that jewels are essentially composed of carbon, a substance he knows his mother possesses. He sees RLC's jewelry as a valuable solution to their problems and feels confident that he can even create a diamond if necessary. Although Errol desires to escape his crib, he acknowledges that his frail baby body is not yet up to the task. Instead, he contemplates using his potent mana to levitate himself out of the crib and onto the floor. To others, it might just be charcoal, but Errol sees it as a crucial resource that can be transformed into a precious jewel through pressure. While proud of his ingenious idea, Errol swiftly returns his focus to action while everyone else is asleep. Concentrating, he combines thermal energy with mana to apply pressure to the charcoal. Errol expends all his mana on the task, confident that he can replenish it later. He's determined to ensure that the energy he gathers won't go to waste. Errol continuously repeats compress and zip while exerting pressure on the charcoal, despite the challenging nature of raising the charcoal's pressure. As the pressure intensifies, Errol finds himself being pushed back but remains resolute, refusing to move. He motivates himself, envisioning his mother's joy upon seeing the result. While his thoughts linger on his mother, a sudden surge of energy causes the pressure to mount, resulting in soot blasting out of the chimney. Errol clambers over the fireplace and rummages through it to retrieve the diamond he has created. Impressed by its beauty, he contemplates how to present it to his mother in a manner that won't raise suspicion. The next morning, China greets His Highness and notices that the prince is outside his crib, which surprises her since she can't fathom how he managed to escape. She places Errol in her arms and realizes that the prince had been wandering outside of his crib all night, covered in ash and soot, suspecting that Errol had been playing throughout the night. Sheena turns around and surveys the mess on the floor, fireplace, and carpet, wondering if the house has always been in such disarray. She tells Errol that he can't touch the floor now. However, Errol remains unfazed and begins implementing his plan, quickly placing the jewel in his mouth. Gina detects something in Prince Errol's mouth that shouldn't be there and asks him to hand it over. She squeezes his cheeks until a diamond falls from his mouth, leaving her astonished. She inquires where he obtained it and questions if it's from the floor. Sheena mentions her role in managing the treasury in the palace and confirms that nothing is missing, with the diamond not even appearing on the inventory list. She hugs Prince Errol and suggests that it appears he wanted to give her the diamond. Prince Errol smiles and agrees, stating that he's sure his mother would appreciate the diamond as well. Later, a convoy of wagons arrives at the palace, filling the empty kitchen warehouse with groceries and firewood, greatly easing the burdens of the people. All of this is made possible by the diamond, which was traded for the highest price. With 5 years' worth of food and firewood secured, Lady Levana expresses concern about the rightful owner of the diamond. Sheena reassures her, explaining that the castle had been ownerless for almost 100 years until Lady Levana took it over. Sheena suggests that the diamond might be a sign of God's favor toward Prince Errol, although Lady Levana remains uncertain. Nevertheless, she expresses gratitude for the newfound abundance of resources. Prince Errol clings to his mother's dress, thinking to himself that she only needs to hold on until he grows up. He envisions a future where his mother no longer has to endure hardships. Even as he becomes a baby again, he resolves to turn that vision into reality. That winter, the fireplace burned continuously, stabilizing the palace's finances and bringing visible improvements throughout the palace. As Lady Levana dines, she comments that the meal is too much for her and inquires about the servants' food. Sheena reassures her not to worry about them, noting that Anna, who had previously quit, was reinstated, and the treatment of the servants had improved. However, the most significant change observed by Prince Errol is Lady Levana's no longer gloomy demeanor. As he gazes at his mother, he realizes that she looks the most beautiful when she smiles. Despite it being the coldest winter ever, it feels warmer than any other day in his life, thanks to the palace's newfound financial stability and his loving mother. A year had elapsed, and Sheena and Lady Levana found themselves engaged in a discussion about Prince Errol's attire. They conducted a dress-up session, having him try on various outfits. Eventually, they settled on a more elaborate ensemble. Prince Errol couldn't help but wonder what the occasion was and why there was such a fuss about his outfit. Inwardly, Prince Errol contemplated the need for some rest, and began brainstorming ideas on how to achieve it. He opted to lie down on the ground and started to whine, which caught both his mother and Sheena by surprise. However, Sheena deduced that the prince needed some sleep and gently placed him in his crib. It was at this moment that Sheena declared that Prince Errol would be officially recognized as a member of the royal family. This left Prince Errol puzzled, prompting him to wonder about the significance of being recognized. Lady Levana expressed her joy that Prince Errol had grown up without any issues and pondered whether the king would attend his birthday celebration. China reassured her, explaining that the king was merely waiting for the right time, as newborns were often vulnerable to mishaps. Overhearing this conversation, Prince Errol realized that all the preparations were for his upcoming birthday celebration. Lady Levana acknowledged that not everyone might welcome the banquet, but the announcement of Prince Errol inheriting the royal blood would be made official. She was pleased that the rules of the Arnesian royal family also applied to Prince Errol. Prince Errol couldn't help but think that his mother looked more excited than usual, and he began to anticipate the upcoming banquet. He also realized that if it was a banquet, it would likely be attended by nobles and other members of the royal family, potentially giving him the opportunity to finally meet the king. The thought of the king not showing up since the day he was born infuriated Prince Errol, and he couldn't fathom how his father could be so indifferent to their lives. He resolved to use this opportunity to firmly establish his existence in the king's mind. The royal family of Arnesia made their grand entrance, signaling the start of the banquet. Prince Errol observed the queen and her family, recognizing them as his half-siblings. The eldest son and a girl who seemed to have an exaggerated sense of importance stood out the most. He understood the need to scrutinize each of them but was disappointed when they ignored his mother. Seeing Lady Levana's expression change, Prince Errol grew curious about the cause. When he turned to look, he saw His Majesty, the king, making his entrance. Prince Errol noticed the tremendous energy exuding from him, silencing the chattering nobles. His intuition hinted that the king was at least a peak-level master. As the king proceeded through the banquet hall, Prince Errol couldn't help but wonder whether the king's gaze was fixed on him or his mother. Despite experiencing countless reincarnations, he still struggled to read others' thoughts. The banquet officially commenced with gifts and congratulations from the lower-class nobles. Sharing a common trait with high-ranking aristocrats, they openly displayed their disdain for Errol's mother and the prince himself. Errol found their behavior rude, and it infuriated him to witness such disrespect. Lady Levana, misunderstanding Errol's mood, attributed his discomfort to the crowded room and offered him some milk to soothe him. Errol decided to suppress his emotions for the sake of his mother, realizing that the opinions of these individuals held no significance. As the banquet progressed, Prince Errol began to feel drowsy. However, his slumber was abruptly disrupted when a girl, one of the concubine's children, pinched his cheeks. This drew his attention to the other concubines and their offspring. Despite feeling annoyed, Errol understood that the girl was too young to grasp the power dynamics of the nobles. The children offered their congratulations on His Highness's birthday, and as Lady Levana began to thank them for attending, they hastily took their leave. Errol felt empathy for his mother as they endured the cruelty of others during the event. At that moment, Queen Alia approached Lady Levana, mentioning that it had been a long time. Lady Levana inquired about her well-being, and Queen Alia responded that fortunately, nothing unpleasant had occurred since her son had fulfilled his duties as the first heir, all the while casting a cold glance. Queen Alia remarked that Prince Errol resembled his mother and looked adorable, though Errol wondered if her kindness was genuine. He believed that if she truly cared about his mother and him, she would have assisted with their financial struggles in the concubine's castle, such as the lack of firewood that led to the guards becoming lumberjacks and the maids repurposing leftover cloth for his clothes. The queen wished Errol a good time, and Lady Levana expressed her gratitude as the queen departed. The king then approached, inquiring about their situation and adaptation to life in the concubine's castle. Lady Levana assured him they were faring well, but Prince Errol began to whine, silently criticizing the king for not providing sufficient funds for their living expenses, deeming him a cheapskate. Noticing Errol's discontent, Lady Levana urged him to behave. The king took Prince Errol into his arms and realized that the prince wasn't crying as other children typically would. Errol seized the opportunity to laugh instead, believing that a man who doesn't melt at his baby's smile can hardly be called a father. The king remarked that Prince Errol was an intriguing child and decided to give him a little extra attention. Errol gestured to be put down and, as he did, Lady Levana mentioned that he wasn't able to walk just yet. To everyone's astonishment, the prince proved them wrong. As an extraordinary 1-year-old, he began walking in front of everyone, relishing his role as the day's main character. Both Lady Levana and China were amazed by his first steps, and the king wondered if this was what Errol wanted to demonstrate. As Prince Errol walked towards the dining table, he believed he needed to do more to prove he was different from other children. With a large audience present, he decided it was time to put on a perfect show. Prince Errol grabbed the tablecloth and yanked it, causing plates and glasses to tumble down onto him. This unexpected action left everyone, including the king staring in astonishment. However, this was all part of Prince Errol's plan, not just to demonstrate that a 1-year-old could walk, but to execute his own perfect little operation, complete with his impeccable bad acting. Errol pretended to cry as the king quickly picked him up to check for injuries. He noticed the wine-stained clothes but saw that the prince wasn't hurt. Sheena offered to help, but the king insisted on handling it himself. To everyone's surprise, he discovered something shocking underneath the stained clothes. Errol's undergarments were raggedy and old. This revelation prompted onlookers to realize that Errol must have lived a humble life. Hearing whispers in the crowd, the king shouted, causing everyone to cower in fear. Errol raised his body heat using his energy and shredded his clothes when Sheena was getting ready to change his clothes. The fabric was so fragile that Errol could tear it right through with his baby's hands. The king demanded answers, and instead of directing his questions at Lady Levana, he asked his servant, Jennifer, about the budget allocation for each palace. Jennifer claimed it should be distributed fairly. Angered by the situation, the king demanded that Jennifer bring the budget details immediately, as this didn't seem like fairness at all. Prince Errol saw that his birthday party had turned into a hearing but viewed it as an opportunity to learn about his father. Lady Levana took responsibility for the situation and took Errol back into her arms, while the king remained silent. Errol thought to himself that they must endure this a bit longer as he was doing it for their sake. As Jennifer returned with a budget, the entire room anxiously awaited the unfolding events. Upon examining the budget, the king suddenly crumbled and burned the paper in a fit of rage, causing Lady Levana to tremble in fear. Errol observed the king's anger and realized that the king was unaware of their predicament, prompting him to wonder who was responsible for their situation. The king questioned the queen about her knowledge of the situation. She asked what the budget revealed, and he responded that it was distributed unfairly and misused. The queen expressed disbelief, and the king asked how she could be unaware of this, given her authority over the concubine's affairs. Just as the king interrogated the queen, her son interrupted the conversation. The queen's son argued that someone wicked must have been responsible, and that his mother never intended for this to happen. The king interrupted, asking if that meant she was not responsible just because she didn't do it herself, his gaze cold and intense. He emphasized that his brother had been poorly clothed and starved due to this mismanagement, and the onlookers noted the defeat in the queen's son's expression. Amidst all this, Prince Errol sensed no malice from the queen but felt pressure from the king. The king questioned if she truly bore no responsibility for anything, but the queen's son remained silent, casting a shadow of disappointment and gloom over the room. Lady Levana intervened, taking the blame upon herself for not deserving better. The king countered, stating that she had given birth to a child of royal blood, making her part of the royal family. As Lady Levana stuttered in response to the king's words, he held her arm and reassured her to take pride in her royal status. At this moment, the queen's expression shifted from one of apparent concern to one of disgust. The king ordered a search for the perpetrator and demanded accountability, hoping to prevent such an incident from recurring. The queen promised not to cause any more trouble, and the king warned her of consequences if she did. Although the queen pledged to identify and punish the person responsible, she secretly knew who it was and considered them insignificant. The queen apologized to Lady Levana, expressing her regret for not consulting her more frequently, but Lady Levana dismissed the need for an apology. Upon hearing this, Prince Errol disagreed internally, sensing insincerity in the queen's eyes. A few days later, the budget problem was resolved, and the mastermind and aristocrat embezzling money were captured and beheaded at the concubine's castle. Maids discussed the ringleader's confession and wondered what had happened to the embezzled money. Although the maids were relieved, Prince Errol believed it had been too easy and suspected someone was covering up the real culprit. He recognized the queen as a formidable opponent and planned to deal with her when he was older. For now, he focused on eating and growing. Speaking of eating, Prince Errol started crying to get the maid's attention. As Sheena fed Prince Errol, he was thrilled to have fun and eat. Feeling refreshed, he contemplated taking a nap. Suddenly, he heard horses neighing outside and woke up, wondering about the commotion. Noticing Sheena was still asleep, he looked out the window and saw a carriage escorted by soldiers, wondering to whom it belonged. He heard 3 people approaching, his mother, another adult, and someone with light footsteps like Lady Levana. As they reached the door, Prince Errol realized he needed to wake up Sheena, so he rushed to her and tried to awaken her. As the door opened, Lady Levana and the guests entered. Errol playfully squeezed Sheena's cheeks, prompting Lady Levana to ask him to stop. As China stood up, she overheard Lady Livana scolding Prince Errol for his actions. With China now awake and Lady Livana present, Prince Errol was reminded to listen well to his China. To China's surprise, another noble, Miss Phinelia, was in the room. China apologized for not having prepared for her arrival, but Miss Phinelia assured her it was fine since she hadn't informed anyone of her visit. Prince Errol recalled that Miss Phinelia had been the royal concubine during his birthday celebration. Lady Livana commented that had she known, she could have prepared something for Miss Phinelia, who preferred to keep her visit a secret. After patting her daughter's head and telling her to stay put, Miss Phinelia joined Lady Livana for a private chat, leaving Lady Livana wondering about the topic of conversation. Suddenly, Miss Phinelia apologized, causing Lady Livana to cough in surprise. When asked about her apology, Miss Phinelia explained that she had felt guilty ever since the prince's birthday celebration. The story then delved into the history of Miss Phinelia's noble family, the House of Kinchester, renowned for their contributions during the peak of a past war, making their name well known throughout the country. However, their decline began when no male heirs displayed military talent, leading to rumors about the family's financial struggles. Lady Livana inquired if the issue was related to family debt, and Miss Phinelia confirmed this, explaining that she couldn't refuse their proposal. She handed Lady Livana a bag of gold, not seeking forgiveness, but hoping that any resentment would be directed at her alone, sparing her daughter from the feudal affairs of the king. Lady Livana reassured Miss Phinelia, conveying that she accepted the gold as a symbol of goodwill between them. She pushed the bag of gold toward her. Lady Livana then made a revelation that left Prince Ariel astonished. She explained that their budget issue was connected to her role as Queen Alia's attendant. This disclosure shed light on the ongoing tension between his mother and the Queen. Prince Ariel began to feel uneasy and thoughtful about his mother's predicament. Sheena noticed his discomfort and inquired if he was all right. But Prince Ariel responded with a cheerful baby's smile, appearing fine. Sheena remarked on his surprising mood swings and walked away to chat with Princess Kania about her progress in reading her book. Subsequently, Prince Ariel concentrated intently, using his mastery over his Kai to eavesdrop on conversations beyond the room. In the process, he overheard his mother's discussion, where Lady Livana admitted to accepting the Queen's disdain, understanding that there was little else she could do. Nevertheless, with Prince Ariel by her side, Lady Livana was determined to thwart the Queen's plans despite the challenges. Lady Livana expressed her desire to grow closer to Miss Phinelia, and sensing that this was more than just goodwill, Miss Phinelia acknowledged Lady Livana's determination and agreed. They believed that when they both found themselves in dire straits, they could rely on each other. As the conversation continued, Prince Ariel reflected on his mother's awareness of the hidden feud between the Queen and the royals, including himself and his mother. He wondered who might pose a threat in the future and if he should prepare for the challenges ahead. During this contemplation, Princess Kania approached his crib. He didn't expect her to climb in, but she surprised him by doing so, squeezing his cheeks and commenting on their softness and warmth. Prince Ariel was puzzled, feeling like a toy. Sheena observed this, and he hoped she would come to his aid. Instead, she remarked on his cuteness, and Kania agreed. Sheena even encouraged Kania to visit more often, while Prince Ariel looked defeated and eventually cried. Time passed, and Prince Ariel turned 30 months old. He gazed out the window, pondering the fleeting nature of life as his third birthday approached. He struggled to adjust to speaking like a baby, reminiscing about his eloquent speech during his 45th reincarnation and his ability to charm a woman in just 10 minutes. Suddenly, he heard a child's whistle in the hallway and hide, knowing it was Princess Kania looking for him. Although he wasn't keen on playing hide and seek, Kania spotted his shoes behind a curtain and declared, "Found you." She asked if he wanted to play, and inwardly, Ariel denied it. However, Kania dragged him to a larger space to play. After Miss Phinelia's initial visit, Kania's visits became more frequent, which Ariel attributed to China's suggestion. However, he noticed that her mother and his were growing closer. Kania asked Prince Ariel to promise that he would come to her when he was older whenever she called. Reluctantly, he agreed and thanked her, although he believed she visited only because she had someone to play with. Kania declared that she liked Prince Ariel best, not wanting to spend time with her siblings, Lionel and Meryl. Prince Ariel mused to himself that he wasn't sure about Kania's expectations and that, given his age, he probably wouldn't play with her in a few years as they both grew older. Nevertheless, Kania suddenly lifted him into a tight hug, making it hard for him to breathe. From a distance, someone warned her not to hurt him, prompting Ariel to seek refuge behind Kania's attentive maid and protective escort. Kania wanted to continue playing, but her maid suggested indoor activities like painting and music. Kania found these activities boring and expressed her interest in learning swordsmanship, inspired by watching her brother Kyle practice. Prince Ariel was impressed by Kania's natural talent, even though she was only imitating her brother's practice. Kania exclaimed that she wanted to learn swordsmanship to defeat knights, but her maid forbade it. Frustrated, Kania asked why, and her maid argued that she had no need to wield a sword and should focus on literature and culture. Before her maid could finish, Kania took the sword from its scabbard and swung it around frantically. The maid asked Kania to return the sword, but Kania insisted on learning swordsmanship. Worried, her maid reluctantly conceded but requested that Kania practice with the scabbard on. Prince Ariel watched this scene and found himself growing fonder of Kania. As the seasons passed, Prince Ariel turned 5 and was seen in the pastures of his territory, riding his mighty stallion with a companion by his side. He tugged on the reins, urging his horse to gallop faster and faster, enjoying the freedom and thrill of the ride. Despite appearances, the prince is simply pretending to ride a rocking horse. When Sheena suggests he try riding a real horse, he deems it too dangerous and confidently rejects the idea that a prince must learn horseback riding, leaving Sheena disheartened by his lack of motivation. Prince Ariel has lived through 100 previous reincarnations and has come to understand a harsh truth. Extraordinary talent often invites misfortune. Whenever he excels at something like swordsmanship or magic, he attracts unwanted attention and must confront those who seek to exploit or harm him. As a prince with both royal and humble lineage, his actions carry significant weight. His ultimate goal is to enjoy a peaceful life, reaping the benefits of his position. Back at the castle, Prince Ariel asks Sheena for some alone time and requests not to be disturbed. As Sheena leaves, she hopes he will find solace in meditation. However, in reality, he simply lies in bed doing nothing. Later, Prince Ariel and Sheena argue about his lack of enthusiasm for studying. Sheena reminds him that, at the age of 5, he should be eager to learn and expand his knowledge. He responds by expressing his hatred for studying, his disinterest in the world, and his belief that further knowledge is unnecessary. Sheena suggests he sounds like someone who has lived many lives, but he reassures her that it's not her fault and silently decides he wants to live for once. While YOLO doesn't typically apply to Prince Ariel, it took him 100 reincarnations to adopt this new lifestyle. Sheena reminds him that, according to royal law, he must start his studies at the age of 5. She places basic books in front of him, carefully selected for his education. However, Prince Ariel appears melancholic and proceeds to use the books to construct a makeshift house. Sheena insists he treat the books with respect and return to his seat, but he has other plans. Ignoring Sheena's words, he resorts to whining and crying, declaring his refusal to study. Just then, the door bursts open, and Prince Ariel's mother enters with an irritated gaze. Under her watchful eye, he reluctantly begins his studies in the library. He knows that the more he excels, the more he endangers those around him, especially since a child of noble blood displaying talent is often targeted. Prince Ariel yearns for a carefree, ideal life for the sake of everyone. As he daydreams, Sheena interrupts him and encourages him to study diligently, believing it will make everyone happy. Ariel ponders this but ultimately deems it too presumptuous. Sheena warns him that his reluctance will sadden his mother, sparking a newfound determination in him to study for her sake. However, he remains adamant about not learning swordsmanship or magic, fearing the consequences, and instead begins brainstorming ideas for his future. A few days later, a carriage arrives at the concubine's residence. Sheena informs Prince Ariel that a mage from the magic tower has come to assess his mana. If he proves talented in this area, he will receive magical instruction. This news worries the prince because any mage would surely sense the vast, unparalleled mana within him. His only option is to somehow conceal his mana. As Prince Ariel walks down the hallway to meet the tester, Sheena tries to lift his spirits by assuring him that regardless of his mana level, he can still develop his abilities. When the door opens, the tester's shocked expression is revealed. The mage quickly rises to his feet and locks eyes with Prince Ariel, studying each other. Prince Ariel observes the mana coursing through the mage's body, wondering how he himself appears through the mage's eyes. As the mage approaches and grasps Prince Ariel's arm to check his vitals, he remarks that he has noticed something unusual. Sheena compliments Prince Ariel, asking if he is special, but the mage hesitates, unsure whether to call him special or peculiar since he can't detect any mana within the prince's body. Despite his efforts to use mana to examine Prince Ariel's veins, the mage finds nothing. Sheena is astonished by this revelation, while Prince Errol leans back in his chair, secretly celebrating his successful concealment of mana earlier. When Prince Errol strolled down the hallway towards the reception room, he had been circulating his Kai to condense his mana. Once condensed, he directed it to his peripheral nerves. The mage was relieved to see a look of surprise on the mage's face as the absence of mana in a member of the royal lineage defied logic. Prince Errol had successfully thrown the mage off course while his veins were being probed for mana. The mage informed Lady Lavanna that Prince Errol appeared to have no aptitude for mana, leaving her puzzled. The mage explained that even commoners possessed a small amount of mana, yet Prince Errol had none whatsoever. Overhearing this, the prince wondered if he had gone too far, and a look of despair crossed Lady Lavanna's face as she realized her son lacked the abilities needed to become a mage. However, this was all part of Prince Errol's scheme to convince everyone of his incompetence, making them believe he was incapable of handling mana at all. As he sat in his chair, he knew that this was only the beginning of his feigned ineptitude. The following day, Prince Errol is introduced to a young knight named Lanfel Tajiran, who has been assigned to instruct him in the art of swordsmanship. Prince Errol inwardly judges his new trainer, believing him to be too weak and ordinary to capture his interest or match his skill level. In his previous life, the prince had fought various monsters and endured countless intense battles. Nevertheless, Prince Errol agrees to the training, encouraging both of them to do their best and grow stronger. However, he secretly believes the training is more for the young knight's benefit than his own. Despite this, he has no desire to undergo any challenging exercises like his sister Kania, who wears weights to develop her physical strength. Lanfel explains that this type of rigorous training is customary for the Kinchester family, but Prince Errol retorts that it sounds more like something a household of martial artists would do. He then inquires about their training plan. Lanfel informs the prince that in addition to strength, swordsmanship requires flexibility and balance, which he demonstrates by skillfully swinging his sword. He suggests they begin with basic exercises to enhance balance and concentration, such as balancing on logs. Prince Errol explains that he fears falling but has only started on the lowest step. Lanfel reassures him with a practiced smile, assuring Prince Errol that even if he were to fall, he wouldn't be injured. In response, Prince Errol asks what he should do given his fear of heights. The next focus of their training is flexibility, and since Prince Errol is young, Lanfel assumes he will have no issues with this. However, much to Lanfel's surprise, the young prince struggles to even touch his toes. Undeterred, Lanfel moves on to sword training, using wooden swords. He teaches Prince Errol to use centrifugal force to transfer power to the tip of his sword. As the prince attempts this, his grip falters, and the sword slips from his grasp. Lanfel watches in disbelief as Prince Errol completely botches the exercise. Prince Errol, with a look of despair, admits to Lanfel that he has no talent for swordsmanship. But Lanfel encourages him, explaining that it is his first time and that he will improve with continued training. He then hands the prince another sword. Throughout the training, Prince Errol is aware of a watchful observer. His feigned incompetence has been intentional, designed to spread rumors of his inadequacy throughout the city. Indeed, whispers among the nobilities suggest that Prince Errol possesses even less mana than commoners. These rumors eventually reach the Queen's ears, describing how Prince Errol has failed in every aspect of martial arts and is so clumsy that he might trip simply by walking. While some are amused by these tales, they place Prince Errol in a difficult position. At the concubine's castle, Prince Errol receives news of an incoming private tutor while enjoying delicious cookies and orange juice, a unique combination for these medieval times. The circulating rumors of Prince Errol's ineptitude have caused numerous tutors to refuse the responsibility of teaching the so-called trash prince. Curious as to who would dare take on the task, Prince Errol peers out the window just in time to see his new tutor alighting from a carriage. Moments later, he learns that the tutor's name is Gamel Priania. The atmosphere in the room grows tense, weighed down by the pressure of teaching an allegedly incompetent prince and the presence of a disinterested student. Prince Errol sighs in resignation, deciding that they should begin with literature, focusing on foreign and common languages. Gamel places stacks of books before Prince Errol, explaining that learning basic grammar typically takes only a day. However, given the prince's notorious reputation, Gamel offers him a few days instead, reassuring him that it's fine if he still struggles. Annoyed, Prince Errol insists that he will do his best. Gamel carries on, stating that poor academic performance is not necessarily due to a lack of interest or aptitude but rather the capacity of the brain, implying that it isn't the prince's fault. Prince Errol finds it disheartening to be openly looked down upon for his perceived incompetence. He realizes that while he wanted people to stop caring about him, he hadn't anticipated the sting of their disdain. As night falls and moonlight bathes the library in the concubine's castle, a small figure slips through the doorway, Prince Errol. The prince prides himself on his exceptional linguistic skills owing to his hundreds of past lives, which have allowed him to speak fluently from an early age. Strolling through the library's corridor, he wonders whether he should startle others with his genius. Concentrating mana in his hands, Prince Errol searches for books on vocabulary and grammar, using his magical abilities to pluck them from the shelves as he passes each row. He decides to broaden his scope and include books from other countries as well. With precision, he collects all relevant texts and neatly arranges them on a table. As he opens one of the books, an evil grin spreads across his face. He remarks that while many texts exist in the world, they all share common rules. Prince Errol has lived 100 lives, and in each one he has never been idle. That night, he devotes himself to studying the books, eager to display his brilliance. A few days later, Gamel confronts the prince, suggesting that his jests have gone too far and questioning whether he has genuinely mastered the common languages. Prince Errol sighs and assures Gamel that he isn't lying, offering to prove his expertise by reading something. Gamel wonders if the prince has merely memorized the texts, but Prince Errol insists that memorizing an entire language would be a remarkable feat in itself. After all, compared to the characters of neighboring countries, the kingdom's official language presents a significant challenge. The flustered Gamel challenges Prince Errol to select a different book to prove his claims, asserting that even the smartest individuals need to be at least 12 years old to read a simple book, while the prince is only 5. Thus, mastering a common language in just 2 days seems preposterous. Without missing a beat, Prince Errol grabs a book and flawlessly recites its contents, leaving Gamel astounded. Overwhelmed, Gamel begins to cry, exclaiming that this achievement is extraordinary. After all, a student's success elevates their teacher's reputation as well. Prince Errol merely scoffs, acknowledging that Gamel should feel honored to have such a prodigious student like him. Energized by this revelation, Gamel eagerly proceeds to that day's lesson, excited to teach his brilliant pupil. By the following night, the rumors surrounding Prince Errol had shifted. Previously, the nobility gossiped about how he couldn't even properly wield a sword, yet now they marveled at how he had mastered the common language in a mere 2 days. Rumors began to circulate about his extraordinary abilities, with whispers suggesting that he could effortlessly solve basic math problems in his head on the spot. This marked the beginning of Genius Rel's legendary reputation. But where did these rumors originate? In a local tavern, a familiar figure could be seen bragging about recognizing Prince Errol's potential when everyone else had dismissed him. He insisted that everyone possessed hidden talents and credited his own excellent teaching for the prince's success. The drunken man regaling the nobles with tales of his prodigious student was none other than Gamel, Prince Errol's tutor. News of Errol's remarkable intellect soon reached the king, who expressed astonishment at his son's extraordinary abilities. In his conversation with Lady Lavanna, the king suggested that whether it be swordsmanship or magic, their young prince must have struggled with being forced to participate in activities ill-suited to his abilities. Lady Lavanna apologized for causing the king concern while privately reflecting that she should have recognized her son's exceptional nature sooner as his mother. As the king approached Lady Lavanna, he wondered if she had been deeply worried about their son. They shared a tender gaze, and the king expressed his conviction that Prince Errol would grow up to be an impressive individual. Unbeknownst to them, the prince had been eavesdropping on their conversation and silently concurred that he would indeed accomplish great things, perhaps just enough to keep the king's interest, secure a prominent position, and enjoy himself. Just then, he heard a loud thud behind him. China had dropped off a large chest, which his mother explained was a gift from the king. Surprise filled Prince Errol as he approached the chest, and his mother urged him to open it and see what's inside. Upon opening it, he discovered an abundance of gold coins and jewels. As he sifted through the treasure, he found a unique necklace. Sheena inquired whether it's the most valuable item in the chest, but Prince Errol replied that while it may not be the most expensive, it is certainly the most extraordinary. Wearing the necklace, he explained, activates the brain and accelerates one's thinking, consequently reducing fatigue. Sheena was amazed by Prince Errol's knowledge, attributing his insights to his intense study over the past few days. But the prince modestly brushed off the praise. In reality, while the necklace may seem ordinary to others, Prince Errol could perceive the mana-triggering device within the jewel. However, he had no need for it due to his energy. He began to think about Kania, who had been training her body for swordsmanship and had become quite muscular. Prince Errol asked his mother if he could give the necklace to Kania. Lady Lavanna gently patted her son's head and said that while the necklace is a gift from the king, Giving it away as a present would surely please his majesty. She then inquired what Prince Errol admires about Kania, to which he responded that she is incredibly strong, prompting laughter from the maids. That day, everyone in the concubine's castle rejoiced in the knowledge that Prince Errol was both favored and acknowledged by the king. The young knight proudly declared this fact, reminding his fellow knights that they were all part of the concubine's castle and should take pride in it. A few days later, Prince Errol sat in the dining hall with China, who informed him that all the desserts he had requested were prepared and asked for his opinion. As the prince sampled the various desserts, he found none to his liking and reached for another morsel. Sheena encouraged him to take his time and enjoy the treats, inquiring if they were delicious. Frustrated, Prince Errol replied that they were not, as all the desserts lacked the sweetness he craved. Sheena, puzzled, mentioned that the desserts were prepared by the best chefs and offered to call one of them over. Contemplating the situation, Prince Errol experienced a moment of clarity. What he needed was not a chef but an alchemist. This revelation took Sheena by surprise, and Prince Errol began to daydream about carbonated beverages and sweets from his previous life, drooling at the thought of drinking cola. He realized that to recreate the taste of cola, he'd need an alchemist's help. Sheena, puzzled by the mention of an alchemist, questioned Prince Errol, who was surprised she overheard his musings. Prince Errol considered explaining but doubted she would understand, especially coming from a 5-year-old with a sudden desire for an alchemist. Assessing his situation, Prince Errol recognized the challenge of producing both flavors with the limited seasonings and ingredients available in the kingdom. Furthermore, the creation of cola would require specific secondary and tertiary processes not currently accessible to him. Disheartened by this realization, he dreamed of sipping a cold, tangy sweet cola. Motivated by his desire, Prince Errol reminded himself that he had chosen the genius scholar path and should take action. He springs up from his seat and rushes out of the room. Sheena, bewildered by his abrupt departure, inquires about his destination. Prince Errol responds that he's heading off to study. Still perplexed, Sheena scratches her ear, double-checking if she heard him correctly. As Prince Errol races through the castle corridors, his singular focus is on chemistry. Recognizing the close relationship between cooking and chemistry, he is determined to find answers in alchemy that will allow him to recreate cola, regardless of any obstacles. 3 years elapse, and Prince Errol, now 8 years old, assumes a position at the head of a conference table. The discussion revolves around plans to construct new bridges, especially in areas frequented by merchants. A supervisor asks for Prince Errol's opinion on the bridge plans. As he studies the blueprints, Prince Errol acknowledges their magnificence and, with a concealed smirk, questions the designer behind the bridge. Another supervisor eagerly takes credit but quickly loses his smile as Prince Errol threatens to dismiss him for presenting another impractical design. Prince Errol points out flaws in the design, emphasizing that it may be functional now but poses a danger when snow accumulates during winter due to structural weaknesses. He underscores that while maintaining the kingdom's beauty and grandeur is important, safety must take precedence. He demands a redesign and proceeds to examine the next blueprint. Prince Errol's vast knowledge and intelligence have significantly increased his workload. Those who claim to be experts or veterans in their fields pale in comparison to him. Nonetheless, they choose to place their trust in the 8-year-old, and Prince Errol pities them but understands that he has no other choice. He must continue to demonstrate his skills. After the conference, a new maid notices Prince Errol and addresses him by his new nickname, the Young Grey Sage. Unimpressed, he finds it extremely cheesy and instructs her not to use that nickname again since he dislikes it. The maid promises to remember his preference, but as he walks away, she nearly slips up and calls him the Young Grey Sage once more. Annoyed by the new nickname, Prince Errol considers it lame. As the carriage departs, Lady Levana looks out the window and asks Sheena about Errol's destination. Sheena responds that Prince Errol has requested an audience with the king, sparking Lady Levana's curiosity about the nature of their conversation. With hesitation, Sheena contemplates mentioning his desire to learn alchemy. Inside the carriage, Prince Errol ponders how the king might react to his sudden request to learn alchemy. Despite his immediate audience request being granted, he assumes that the king has come to trust him due to his diligent work in various fields. As he gazes out the window, Prince Errol can't shake the feeling of being overwhelmed by the king's charisma, even after having reincarnated 100 times. He reminds himself to maintain composure and avoid any mistakes while speaking to the king. When the king asks why Prince Errol wants to learn alchemy, he responds that his aim is to be of greater assistance to the kingdom and the king. Since he lacks proficiency in swords or magic, he can only accumulate knowledge and apply it. The king ponders Prince Errol's thoughts and appreciates the young prince's thoughtfulness. In agreement with his request, the king promises to introduce him to trustworthy alchemists, and inquires if he needs anything else. Prince Errol replies that he will ask for anything else later if needed, and as the king smiles, Prince Errol smirks, thinking to himself that his plan worked. From that day on, the most esteemed alchemists in the kingdom gathered upon hearing that Prince Errol sought an alchemy teacher, viewing it as an opportunity to showcase their alchemical expertise and gain recognition among their peers. It was only natural that Darman Lanzit, a practical alchemist renowned for creating reflective mirrors that transmit strong light far away, and installing them on the western outskirts of the fortress to deter invaders, was selected. A few days later, Prince Errol meets Daman in the concubine castle's garden, where Darman admires the garden's true beauty. Surprised by Daman's youthful appearance, Prince Errol expected an elder-level alchemist based on his reputation. In response, Daman explains that his hair turned white after accidentally inhaling toxic smoke long ago. Prince Errol comprehends that Daman nearly lost his life during his alchemical pursuits and scoffs. While Daman speaks calmly, he warns the prince to be prepared because he is responsible for the young grey sage. If Prince Errol were to die during research or experiments, Daman would have to take responsibility for his own life. With a serious expression, Daman emphasizes that learning alchemy is much more difficult and perilous than Prince Errol may imagine. Daman points out Prince Errol's young age, but before he can finish, Prince Errol interrupts, expressing his understanding of the risks involved. He knows that alchemy is a science, not magic, and he isn't deluded into thinking he can turn lead into gold. Instead, he seeks pure technology to remove impurities from iron ores and develop stronger metals. Amazed by Prince Errol's statements, Daman believes that with the prince's intelligence and charisma, he will become the true monarch to lead the kingdom of Arnesia. Touched by Errol's bold speech, Daman kneels before the prince, pledging to do his best to teach him despite any perceived shortcomings. Several days have passed since the alchemy class began, and Prince Errol is diligently studying. Daman suddenly asks if he has studied alchemy before, surprising Prince Errol. He wonders if he has shown off too much but quickly shifts the topic by claiming that he read about it in a book. Daman accepts his response, remarking that Prince Errol is as described in the rumors. Silently relieved that he adopted the persona of a genius scholar, Prince Errol and Daman work tirelessly from sunrise to sunset. As their research advances, Prince Errol confirms techniques for hardening iron by adding eggshells or bone ash, which he verifies with Daman. Besides learning methods for extracting lead and other substances, Prince Errol realizes that apart from unique metals and medicines in this world, everything else is similar to his previous lives. Amazed, he mentions aloud how fortunate it is that the rules are consistent. Daman questions Prince Errol about his remark, but Prince Errol dismisses it, claiming he was just talking to himself. The king agrees promptly, ordering his men to find the best alchemist in the kingdom. While his advisor understands the order, he expresses concern about potential budget allocation complaints. Reflecting on his previous meeting with Prince Errol, the king reassures his advisor that if it's the prince's request, the research will undoubtedly benefit the kingdom. Back in the kingdom, Prince Errol announces his intention to create a carbonated drink, which astonishes the alchemists. They inquire about the carbonated drink, wondering if he plans to create food. To their surprise, Prince Errol enthusiastically confirms that food is indeed his intention. He presents some fundamental theories, but the alchemists in the room become disheartened. They had come to bring honor to their family names but found themselves involved in snack making instead. One alchemist even regrets giving up his tenured professor position at the Alchemy Academy. Prince Errol reassures them, declaring that they will be generously rewarded regardless of the project's outcome. This changes the atmosphere in the room, and the alchemists start brainstorming ideas. Prince Errol notices that they prioritize monetary gain and fame over sincerity. Nevertheless, he acknowledges their value as a resource for accelerating his research. A few days later, wagons filled with barrels of carbonated water from various territories arrive one after another, delighting Prince Errol. Daman starts by opening one of the barrels and asks if they are supposed to drink it. Prince Errol tells him they must first check if it is drinkable, but upon inspection, he nearly gags at the sight and declares the carbonated water undrinkable, labeling it a failure. He He examines the other barrels and deduces their failures as well. Unfazed, Prince Errol announces that they need to create artificially carbonated water, which excites the alchemists in response. He distributes a paper containing relevant theories and suggests that exploring clues based on these theories might simplify the task. Sensing the weight of responsibility upon them, Prince Errol reassures the alchemists, believing that, as the best in their field, they will accomplish the goal swiftly. Turning to Damon for affirmation, the prince receives a lackluster agreement that they are indeed the finest alchemists in Arnesia Kingdom. With a spring in his step, Prince Errol exits the room, whistling cheerfully, and encourages the alchemists to find delight in experimenting with theories and putting them into practice. He doesn't want to intrude on their time any further, even though he wonders whether they can truly achieve the goal within a week. Nevertheless, he remains confident that his challenge will inspire them to complete the task even more swiftly. Just a few days later, Prince Errol excitedly assures his alchemists that this carbonated water will undoubtedly bring vitality to the kingdom, and its popularity will generate a massive fortune. The alchemists privately wonder if it can truly achieve such results. Prince Errol is amazed that they managed to create artificially carbonated water so quickly, and he eagerly grabs a flask to sample it. Damon and the other alchemists speculate whether it will become popular, as the water packs quite a kick but lacks taste. Prince Errol clears up the misunderstanding, explaining that they will not drink it as is, but instead mix it with fruit juice or alcohol. Although his original goal was to recreate cola, he could not obtain the cola fruit and settled for a carbonated alternative. Prince Errol begins by adding lemon juice to the carbonated beverage and takes a sip. The initial taste is spot on, causing him to exclaim that it's perfect, with his eyes shining with excitement. He then distributes samples to the alchemists, who, as expected, adore them. The invigorating lemon flavor coupled with a gentle fizz of carbonation leaves them craving more. And so, Prince Errol's carbonated Ade is born. The fame of carbonated Ade rapidly extends beyond the borders of the Arnesia Kingdom, becoming a luxurious item among the nobility. Even the king is astonished and proud that his own prince devised such a remarkable beverage. Lord of the Northern Territory Count Demet is puzzled by the prince's creation and consults his servant for confirmation. The servant confirms that the product was developed under Prince Errol's guidance and has become a popular luxurious item, significantly contributing to the economy of the Arnesia Kingdom. There are rumors that carriages filled with gold visit the concubine's palace daily. Regretting his past decision not to support Prince Errol on his first birthday, and having judged him as worthless, Count Demet laments the missed opportunity to benefit from this golden goose. Overcome with sorrow, he vows to pay close attention from that day forward. 2 years pass, and back at the concubine's castle, 16-year-old Princess Kania proudly showcases her swordsmanship. After completing her display, she shyly asks 10-year-old Prince Errol for his opinion. Prince Errol hesitates before responding, telling her she looks incredibly cool and amazing. Both he and Kania's escort offer her compliments, with her escort stating that her basic swordsmanship is beyond reproach. Silently agreeing, Prince Errol thinks to himself that she is far more skilled than any boy her age. Delighted by their praise, Princess Kania leaped with excitement, expressing her gratitude for their kind words. While observing her exuberance, her escort suggested they take a break. Prince Errol couldn't help but think about how adorable she looked as she jumped with such enthusiasm. After their training session, Kania and Errol sat down at a table outside the gardens and enjoyed a cup of tea. During their conversation, Kania mentioned the recent buzz about Errol's development of carbonated beverages, which had not only improved the royal palace's situation but also Arnesia's finances. Errol cheerfully stated that it was merely his duty as a prince. Kania then shared a rumor about him being the perfect son, causing envy among many toward Lady Levana. However, there was more to Errol's success in creating soda. After learning that his mother, Levana Ainrest, hailed from a fallen noble family that managed a small territory and lived as commoners, Prince Errol decided to entrust the soda distribution to the Ainrests. This decision led to remarkable results, with people lining up not only for a single soda but also for crates upon crates, eagerly quenching their thirst. Some were even willing to pay 2 or 3 times the regular price to get their hands on the beverage. In addition to soda, Prince Errol introduced yogurt and MSG to the market, both of which gained immense popularity. These achievements revolutionized the Ainrest family's finances, making them wealthier than any merchant in the kingdom. Their residence was adorned with gold from ceiling to floor, shining so brightly that navigating through it was nearly impossible due to the overwhelming radiance. Due to these rumors, people began comparing the actions of Prince Errol to those of Princess Kania, leaving Kania feeling frustrated and upset to the point of tears. She implored him to ease up on his contributions. All Prince Errol could do was chuckle and say, "Is that so?" Hoping to shift the conversation, he invited Kania to enjoy some soda and waffles topped with Irl's syrup, assuring her he could afford the indulgence. However, Kania had other ideas. She unsheathed her sword, highlighting what she perceived as Errol's issue. What good was wealth if he couldn't exercise or practice swordsmanship? With her sword at his throat, she declared she would teach him swordsmanship. Slightly annoyed, Errol thanked her for the offer but declined, explaining he didn't wish to follow that path in this life. Reflecting on his past as a swordsman, Errol reminisced. But Kania suddenly sprang into action, attacking him while demonstrating the proper techniques. Errol figured complying would bring a swifter end to the situation and could feel Kania's dream and goal. Her aspiration to raise a family of master swordsmen single-handedly, which must have instilled the delicate girl with boundless energy. Touched by her determination, Prince Errol began to channel his Kai incrementally, offering Kania his support in her pursuit. A few days later, Prince Errol was in a carriage on his way to see the king. The people was happy to see him. He marveled at the carriage size, comparing it to a Lamborghini, and noticed the attention it drew. With an escort accompanying him, he felt like he was becoming an idol. As Errol laid back and relaxed in the carriage, he wondered what the king would discuss with him this time. He suddenly had an inkling that he might receive an additional allowance as a reward for his achievements. Upon arriving, Prince Errol joined the king for lunch. He recalled how the unnerving silence used to make him nervous, but he had grown accustomed to it. So he sat and enjoyed his meal alone while waiting for the king to speak, as he had been visiting the king more frequently. Just as Prince Errol was about to swallow a cookie, he choked when the king asked if he had any thoughts of taking up a full-fledged government job. Errol cleared his throat and realized that the time had finally come for him. The king continued, saying it might be a bit early, but if he took on government work, no one would object. He asked Errol what he thought and if there was any specific work he wanted. Trying to keep his composure, Prince Errol replied that he didn't have any preferences. All the while, he thought to himself that he just wanted to play and eat in this life. Taking a sip of tea, Prince Errol tried to calm himself and told the king he didn't understand why he was considering this occupation when he was still learning science and alchemy. He maintained a blank facial expression as the king sat there in silence. Errol pondered the fact that the first prince wasn't involved in the government yet and wondered why the king wanted him to assume a position. Instead, he considered the lack of action from the queen's and the first prince's side, as he had always maintained a clear boundary that he shouldn't cross. The recent ball had been dismissed due to the mischievous antics of the freak prince, and Errol considered himself lucky. After all, being lobbied by the king was different from being entrusted with a significant government post. Prince Errol reflected on his aversion to engaging in gossip and feuding with his brothers. He pondered whether the king was intentionally trying to sow discord among them and if that was his true intention. Errol contemplated that the survival of the fittest mentality wasn't limited to the natural world. Sitting on the throne demanded the strength of an eagle. Without such might, even the wisdom from hundreds of previous lives wouldn't ensure survival. He wondered if the king genuinely desired a realm where only the strong thrived. However, to Errol, this mattered little, as his present self wouldn't be easily defeated. Several days had passed since Errol's meeting with the king. Now, we find him exhilarated as he rides a horse, reflecting on this being his first time venturing so far from the concubine's palace, riding a real horse rather than a rocking one. The wind brushing against him made him relish his newfound sense of freedom. Errol believed he had earned it after his tireless efforts had transformed him into an unexpected workaholic homebody. He reminisced about his past adventures, traveling the globe and even the entire universe in search of formidable opponents. Yet today, he was content with the simple pleasure of riding a horse. At that moment, Kania called for him to slow down, surprised by Errol's equestrian prowess. Internally, the prince thanked her for this excursion, and outwardly, he credited the horse's intelligence for his swift riding. Curious, Errol glanced back and inquired about the numerous escort knights accompanying them on such a brief journey. He couldn't help but notice the presence of several formidable warriors. Kania softly admitted she hadn't requested such a substantial entourage. But before she could finish her thought, Prince Errol interjected, reminding her of her status as a princess, where her safety must always be the priority, even if it means sacrificing some of their freedom. Suddenly, Prince Errol sensed an ominous aura emanating from the path ahead. He wondered what kind of magical energy it could be and brought his horse to a halt. Kenya asked him what was wrong, and Errol advised they turn back, suspecting that monsters inhabited the nearby forest. Kenya was puzzled and wondered how he knew this, so the prince made an excuse, explaining that he had a keen sixth sense and couldn't shake the bad feeling that there was a trap waiting for them. Kenya regarded him with disbelief and, without warning, charged forward toward the source of the ominous aura. Taken aback, Prince Errol called for the escort knights to guarantee Princess Kenya's safe return. However, one of the knights sheepishly clarified that they were indeed on the right path, and beyond the forest was the princess's training ground. Baffled, Prince Errol inquired about this training ground but ultimately accepted the situation and hesitantly followed the confident Kenya as she took the lead. This all started a few days ago when we saw Princess Kenya and Prince Errol sharing a meal. Kenya mentioned her upcoming trip and invited Errol to join her. She empathized with the frustration of being confined to the palace and shared her love for hunting and embarking on adventures. As they rode side by side, Kenya explained to Errol that traveling was practice and practice was traveling, extolling the fun it entailed. Errol, however, considered it more akin to torture. Kenya gazed at him, expressing her belief that he would have joined her even if it were for practice because he believed in her as his sister. She promised to protect him from any monsters they might encounter. Errol simply smiled, admiring the coolness that Kenya exuded. Moments later, they arrived at their destination, and Prince Errol began outlining the operation. Some troops would lure the monsters to one side, Princess Kenya would break through, and the escort team would handle the monsters driven toward the trap. By working together, they aimed to use time and energy efficiently to maximize the princess's abilities. The operation commenced, and the guards gathered. 20 orcs for Princess Kenya to face in combat. Grasping her sword firmly, she dashed toward the orcs, slicing the first one at its neck and knocking back another beside it. Prince Errol watched, initially skeptical that Kenya could defeat an orc during her first practice. Yet, with a hint of envy, he recognized her strength, admiring not only her swordsmanship but also her composure. Kenya charged from one orc to another, her courage and spirit radiating from every fiber of her being. Her performance was enough to overwhelm everyone with excitement, witnessing the incredible feats of a 16-year-old. And so, the training continued for several days, showcasing Kenya's remarkable abilities. During the night, as they sat in front of a fireplace, Prince Errol asked if Kenya was tired. She replied that she was fine and actually wished she could have fought a bit more. Errol cautioned her not to overdo it, explaining that mistakes often occur when one is caught off guard. He recalled a past life where such a mistake cost him dearly. As Kenya and Errol enjoyed each other's company, Kenya explained how delicious the meat skewer was. She hoped it wasn't orc meat. Prince Errol observed her smile, noting that she looked like a typical 16-year-old girl. As the night went on, he asked why she wanted to be so strong. Surprised by the question, Princess Kenya answered solemnly that as a princess, no matter how skilled she becomes with a sword, no one will truly be happy with her choice. They may think it's just a phase, and she'll eventually give up and marry someone she doesn't know. Errol recognized that in their aristocratic society, political marriages were customary, and Kenya had already reached the age for such arrangements. In the world they inhabited, it wasn't unusual for a princess to become engaged for the sake of politics. Interrupting Errol's thoughts, Kenya declared her hatred for that kind of life, which surprised Errol. She admired how he made a lot of money doing what he's good at, contributed to the kingdom, and gained recognition. Kenya wanted to be recognized for who she is and what she's good at, wishing to contribute to the Kenchester family with her skills, not through marriage. With determination in her eyes, she asserted that she would decide her own fate. Prince Errol smiled, probing her mentality, and confidently said that she'd surely change her destiny. Princess Kenya smiled in agreement, aspiring to be like Errol. Then she realized they'd return home the next day, and Errol concurred, considering their journey incredible. When an orc charged toward Kenya, she quickly retaliated with a swift slash to its torso, effortlessly vanquishing the foe. Onlookers gazed in admiration as Princess Kenya continued to hunt orcs. Even on her way back home, they believed that no one could stop her. The orcs who had been hiding were easily apprehended. At that moment, Prince Errol called out to Kenya, urging her to cease her pursuit. He reminded her that they needed to return home promptly, and that there were no more orcs left to catch. Glancing around, Kenya found herself surrounded by the defeated bodies of her enemies and happily agreed to head back. However, she noticed her horse appeared unwell, its appearance peculiar and seemingly fatigued from the day's battles. Errol suggested they share a horse for the journey home while Kenya's horse would be sent to the magicians for healing and care. As Kania mounted the horse, she offered to take the reins, and Errol agreed wholeheartedly, aware that she was more skilled at riding than he was. Their journey back home began with Kania and Errol setting the pace, and the guards trailed closely behind. Nevertheless, nothing ever goes according to plan. Errol sensed something amiss and glanced up at the sky. Kania inquired about his concern, but Errol couldn't pinpoint the issue. He could only sense it, something lurking above the clouds. Focusing his Kai on his eyes, Errol concentrated on discerning the mysterious presence. To his shock, he discovered a wyvern. Alarmed, Prince Errol took control of the reins and told Kania to hold on to him tightly as he prepared to flee. Turning to the guards trailing them, he warned them of the wyvern, instructing them to seek refuge in the nearby woods. However, the guards were incredulous and unconvinced, as they had chosen this area specifically because the local lord, known for hunting wyverns, had assured them that none remained. That's when the red flag was raised, and the one who said it was to be dealt with. To their greatest shock, a wyvern swooped down, seized the guard by the shoulders, and dragged him into the sky. As everyone witnessed this, they started to scream and scatter, taken aback by the presence of the very creature they had been assured was absent. Prince Errol, with a clear head, took control of the reins. Princess Kania worriedly glanced back to assess the situation, only to realize that it wasn't just one wyvern, there were many. They pursued the guards in mass, not as predators stalking prey, but in a merciless slaughter. What Errol found especially unusual was the wyvern's potent poison magic, such as their acid breath attack, which only enhanced their already impressive might. As a result, the terrain behind Errol and Kania resembled an uneven battlefield filled with dread and despair. While Kania observed the multitude of falling guards, Errol implored her not to look back and to hold on to him tightly. Just as a wyvern spotted them and began pursuing them, it charged its acid breath attack. However, a mage intervened just in time, deflecting the assault with a fireball spell. These mages, who had been accompanying them from the rear, now provided cover for Errol and Kania's escape. They skillfully maneuvered through the chaotic scene to avoid collisions. Anxiously, Prince Errol realized they couldn't keep running indefinitely. Wyverns were resistant to Class 4 magic, and the magicians would soon find themselves outmatched, with 2 wyverns closing in. Errol made a split-second decision, converting his mana energy into a powerful magical attack, eliminating one wyvern and then another. He gave the mages all the credit for defeating them. However, their escape was far from complete. A wyvern suddenly landed before the duo, blocking their path. As they prepared for an imminent assault, Kania cried out for her mother. In that moment, Kania's personal guard swiftly emerged, cleaving the wyvern in half with a single stroke of her sword. She then urged them to seek refuge in the nearby woods. Breathing a sigh of relief, Errol admired the guard's extraordinary abilities and hoped she could provide them with much-needed respite. Prince Errol suddenly heard an unexpected voice transmission. "You hold up pretty well." As he scanned his surroundings in search of the source, a dark-robed man appeared before them, laughing ominously. Prince Errol immediately sensed something suspicious about the mage standing in front of him, holding a peculiar-looking staff. Just as Prince Errol inquired about the mysterious man's identity, the dark-robed mage began channeling magic without warning, creating a lightning cannon. Caught off guard by this unexpected attack, Prince Errol had expected an introduction rather than an assault. As the dark mage unleashed his attack, Prince Errol skillfully dodged and shielded Princess Kania. Unfortunately, the guards behind him were not as fortunate. When the magical onslaught ceased, Errol looked back to find all the guards had fallen, smoke still rising from their lifeless bodies. The dark mage remarked on Princess Kania's evasion, expressing surprise. Prince Errol, taken aback by the sudden conversation, realized the mage had addressed Kania by name. He began to wonder if she had been his target all along. With a sinister chuckle, the dark mage taunted them, claiming their efforts had merely provided entertainment. As he prepared to cast another spell, raising his staff, he insisted that escape was futile. A look of dismay crossed Prince Errol's face as he sensed malevolent energy emanating from the staff. Both Kania and Errol felt a growing sense of unease. As Kania surveyed the scene, she noticed something peculiar happening to the bodies of the fallen. A guard shouted that they were moving, and even the slain wyvern began to stir. Witnessing this, Prince Errol asserted that they were now facing the undead. Just then, the dark mage issued a chilling command to the undead, ordering them to eliminate the second princess and teach the arrogant royal family a lesson about the power of the Dark Church. However, he suddenly sensed something amiss, though he couldn't pinpoint its source. Prince Errol refused to stand idly by while his sister Kania was threatened. With determination in his eyes, he wondered who would dare to target her. Drawing upon his spirit, he aimed directly at the dark mage's torso and unleashed a barrage of attacks, causing the dark mage to scream in agony. and collapsed to the ground. Princess Kania, bewildered, asked Prince Errol to explain what had just transpired. He explained that the dark mage had likely suffered the side effects of forcefully using more magic than he could handle. Although the dark mage was defeated, his commanding spell on the undead remained active. The guards urged Princess Kania and Prince Errol to flee and seek safety as they took on the remaining undead forces. Before departing, Prince Errol reassured the guards that he trusted them to handle the rest of the battle. As night fell and they fled into the forest, Prince Errol and Princess Kania sought refuge beneath a cliff, setting up a makeshift camp. Concerned for their safety, Kania found comfort in Errol's reassurance that the undead would soon perish now that the dark mage had been defeated. He added that their guards should be on their way, and she had no reason to worry. Attempting to start a fire, Errol was questioned by Kania about how he had acquired such a skill, given his constant business in the castle. Errol nervously explained the principle of frictional heat generated by rubbing two flammable objects together. Had Kania not been watching so closely, he would have simply gathered mana and converted it into heat energy to ignite the fire, sparing his hands from discomfort. Finally, Errol's persistence paid off, and the fire roared to life. Kania began to wonder if it would have been better if she had not attended the training. But Errol reassured her that the situation was more like an unexpected accident, and not her fault. She asked if he had been scared during the ordeal. Realizing he had been acting too mature, Errol decided to behave his age, admitting that as representatives of the kingdom, they had to endure fear, and the wyverns were indeed terrifying. Seeing Errol's vulnerability, Kania took his hand to comfort him and thanked him for standing by her side during such a harrowing day. Prince Errol acknowledged that Princess Kania had been frightened from the start of the battle, and was heartbroken that those escorting her had lost their lives in vain. He understood the constant threat of assassination faced by the royal family, but he also knew that this was Kania's first time experiencing such danger, making it difficult for her to accept this reality. Despite the challenges, Prince Errol remained focused on their primary goal, returning home safely. Suddenly, an intense battle unfolded in the sky between a wyvern and a griffin. Princess Kania couldn't help but wonder why they were fighting so late at night. Prince Errol, on the other hand, noticed a nest on the cliff and deduced that the wyvern was after the griffin's young. The wyvern managed to bite the griffin's neck, causing it to crash into the cliffside. This alarmed Errol and Kania, and they quickly retreated to avoid being hit by falling rocks. Once the dust settled around them, they saw the wyvern depart, likely deterred by the scent of griffin blood on their bodies. However, Errol realized that Kania had disappeared from his side, leaving him momentarily stunned. He soon spotted her near the fallen griffin and warned her of the danger, but she assured him that it was safe since the griffin had perished. Errol had to concede that there was no stopping Kania's curiosity. As Kania gazed at the lifeless creature, she pondered what they should do with it. Prince Errol hesitantly asked if she planned to bury it, but she had a different idea in mind, expressing concern for the griffin's cub, which surprised Errol. With a somber tone, he explained that the only option was to let nature take its course, despite how cruel it might seem. However, Princess Kania misunderstood and thought that letting nature take its course meant they should raise the cub, which left Errol even more taken aback. As Kania noticed the guards approaching, one of them expressed relief at finding the pair safe and sound. As they drew nearer, Princess Kania warmly greeted them, delighting in their reunion. Kania's guard added that fortunately, no further casualties had occurred after the undead magic spell had been lifted. To the guards' astonishment, they saw Kania cradling a griffin in her arms. Prince Errol, somewhat uneasy, suggested that they had arrived at an opportune moment and should intervene to prevent Kania from adopting the griffin. However, Kania's guard argued that doing so would be impossible. A week had passed, and life had mostly returned to normal except for the new addition to the family. Prince Errol was awakened from his sleep by the griffin cub, and he greeted the latest member of their household with a smile. Despite the cub preventing him from sleeping in like before, Errol found it hard not to forgive the creature for its endearing face and well-behaved nature. The story then flashes back to the events of that fateful night. Errol instructed the guards to escort Kania to a resting place while he secured the area, ensuring that wild beasts wouldn't disturb the fallen griffin's remains. As the guards busied themselves with setting up camp, Prince Errol carefully sliced open the mother griffin's chest with a sword, extracting its magical core. He knew that possessing the core would allow him to tame the newborn griffin. As Errol played with the griffin cub, he noticed Princess Kania arriving at the castle. She hastily exited her carriage and was enthusiastically greeted by the excited griffin cub. Kania enjoyed her time with the cub, while Prince Errol learned of a wanted order issued across the kingdom. A bounty had been placed on the Dark Church, the group responsible for attacking the princess, with rewards offered for information on their whereabouts. Prince Errol remarked that the Dark Church wasn't the only group opposing the kingdom. He suddenly had a realization, wondering if he had been too preoccupied with material wealth. A nearby guard overheard him and inquired about his meeting, but Errol dismissed the matter and sent the guard away. As Princess Kania finally caught the griffin cub, Prince Errol wondered why anyone would target her when she didn't wield significant influence or hold a central position of power. Regardless, she was still a princess and part of his family. He pondered whether he should pursue becoming a sword master and strive to become an aura expert by his late 20s. Looking to shift the conversation, Errol approached Kania and proposed they engage in something enjoyable. Intrigued, Kania inquired about his plan. Moments later, we witnessed the clash of swords and a subtle surge of mana emanating from their blades. Princess Kania took notice of this, and before she could finish her thought, they exchanged one final attack and retreated from each other. With excitement, Kania inquired about her experience, and Errol happily revealed that he had utilized his aura. He secretly relished the success of his scheme and her falling for it. Princess Kania eagerly asked if she could learn it too and inquired about where Errol had studied it. He responded vaguely, stating it was something like that, and went on to explain that using aura primarily relied on the brain. Disheartened, Kania assumed that she couldn't use aura if she wasn't intelligent. However, Errol reassured her, clarifying that it wasn't the case. Kania retorted that it was only possible because Errol was a genius, but he further explained that she simply needed to learn how to control aura with her brain, and he'd teach her. Thrilled at the prospect of learning, Kania asked if she would be able to master it quickly. Errol assured her that by following his method, it wouldn't take long. Privately, he reflected on the reason for her rapid progress, having been secretly transferring mana into Kania. Errol then instructed her to concentrate and follow his guidance, unaware that Kania's guard was eavesdropping on their conversation from behind closed doors. Weeks passed, and whenever Kania visited, she trained in both swordsmanship and aura with Errol. Consequently, she became an aura user at an astonishing speed. Princess Kania gazed at her sword in awe, asking if this was the power of aura. Prince Errol congratulated her but reminded her that it was just the beginning of her journey. One unexpected side effect of their training was that the griffin cub had temporarily grown after being exposed to the potent energy from aura practice. With the griffin cub resting on Errol's shoulder, he jokingly complained about the griffin's weight, even if it were to shrink back to its original size. Prince Errol told Kania that mastering aura was only the first step. They would need to train harder to control strength and movement more smoothly and utilize aura to its fullest potential. He even suggested that she might be able to use aura while riding the griffin. Princess Kania chuckled at Errol's vivid imagination, but he insisted that he was serious. Kania, while gently petting Fly, inquired if Errol's earlier statement was accurate. In Errol's mind, he believed that the day when this would come true was approaching rapidly. Abruptly, the door burst open, and an announcement was made that His Majesty had arrived, catching both Errol and Kania off guard. Errol pondered why the king was present, as he should have been occupied with preparations in the north and probably hadn't just come for leisure. As the king approached with Lady Lavanna by his side, Prince Errol respectfully greeted His Majesty. The king mentioned that he had heard that the two had been practicing swordsmanship lately. Errol downplayed their training, stating that it had only been a little, and he had mainly been engaged in various experiments and trying to tame the griffin for potential border defense. The king's satisfied expression indicated his eager anticipation of witnessing Errol's accomplishments in various fields. At that very moment, two servants arrived, carrying a large chest. Both Kania and Errol were taken by surprise when they saw its contents. With a stern expression, the king instructed Prince Errol to give the sword a try, emphasizing that it was a unique weapon crafted specifically for him. Lady Lavanna interjected, arguing that Errol was still too young to handle such a sword. However, the king chuckled and explained that he didn't expect Errol to wield it but at least to touch it. Errol casually picked up the sword, astonishing everyone. He contemplated whether he should fully commit to practicing swordsmanship from that moment onward. As the king observed, Prince Errol, who lacked martial arts skills, was now holding the sword that had been gifted to him. Errol began to contemplate a thought, but his grip on the sword faltered, causing him to tumble to the ground. Concerned cries echoed throughout the room. Lying on the floor, Errol bitterly reflected on his previous sentiments. He had expressed that he didn't want to meet his end by the blade of a sword. In the eyes of the world, Errol was already exceptional in various aspects. If he were to master swordsmanship, he feared being drawn into the kingdom's power struggles. He had gone to great lengths to maintain the image of the weaker younger brother, even while secretly training. He couldn't let his efforts go to waste. More importantly, he had to decide to what extent he wanted to involve himself in these conflicts. Errol regained his footing and thanked the king for the extraordinary gift. However, he confessed that his swordsmanship skills were still in their infancy. He suggested that his sister, Kania, was more deserving of such a sword. This revelation left Princess Kania in shock. Errol wondered why she was suddenly surprised. Kania's progress had been astonishing, and she had already reached the rank of an aura practitioner, a remarkable achievement that earned her elite status in the kingdom. Although Errol understood that Kania had a long way to go, he believed it was only a matter of time before she reached the level of an aura expert, a rank held by only 30 people in the kingdom. This fact made him think she was the rightful owner of the sword. With that, Prince Errol handed the sword to Princess Kania. As the king watched this exchange, he stepped forward with a mischievous glint in his eyes. He expressed understanding of Prince Errol's sentiment but insisted on a condition. He challenged Kania to prove her swordsmanship and whether she was worthy of such a weapon. Taken aback by the king's request, Kania wore a look of shock that mirrored Errol's dumbfounded expression. Errol wondered what the king was thinking but quickly realized that his father's macho tendencies were at play. The king prompted Kania to demonstrate her sword skills by taking a swing at him, reassuring her that she had nothing to fear. Though flustered, Kania tentatively agreed, and Errol observed her state, understanding it to be a natural reaction. He gave her a supportive pat on the back, encouraging her to seize this opportunity to showcase her progress. Inwardly, he hoped Kania would give the muscle-obsessed king a run for his money, even flashing 2 enthusiastic thumbs up. With Prince Errol's backing, Princess Kania mustered the fighting spirit to accept the king's challenge. As they faced off, swords drawn and stances prepared, the room filled with suspense. The king, with a fierce gaze, noticed that Kania's stance differed from that of the kingdom's knights and inquired if it was her own creation. Errol, watching from the sidelines, marveled at how the king could discern Kania's uniqueness from her stance alone. With newfound determination, Kania raised her sword, ready to spar with the king. As she prepared herself, she called out, "Please guide me, father." Princess Kania initiated the attack, channeling mana into her body and sword, creating a potent gust of wind. Lady Lavanna, startled by the unexpected display, shielded herself, while Prince Errol watched with a pleased grin. He wondered whether there was something inherently formidable about this father-daughter pair, especially considering the choice of aiming for someone's head with the first attack. At that moment, their swords clashed with a resounding impact, emitting an immense wave of energy from the point of contact. Kania, taken by surprise at the sudden counter-attack, only realized at the last second that the king had raised his sword. The king praised her, acknowledging the force behind her attack, which had sent her sprawling to the floor. He revealed that not even the leader of the knights could summon such an amount of aura in a duel, expressing his delight at Kania's remarkable ability. As Kania picked herself up from the floor, nursing her arm from the recoil of the attack, she humbly admitted that she still had much to learn. The king then shifted his attention to Errol, inquiring if he was indeed the one who had trained Kania. Errol, wearing a pleased grin, confirmed that it was indeed him. He downplayed his involvement, attributing Kania's progress to the success of his theoretical approach. He explained that traditional swordsmanship didn't suit Kania, but she exhibited a natural affinity for aura, and he had merely offered her some guidance. Upon hearing this, the king asked if it was possible to teach this method to others. Errol, realizing the king's ulterior motive, was slightly annoyed and suspected that the king envisioned an army of aura expert knights unrivaled by any other country. However, Errol believed this wasn't feasible. Respectfully, Prince Errol declined the king's proposal, explaining that it would be challenging to replicate Kania's results. Her innate potential and the time they had spent together from a young age had allowed him to analyze and tailor her training to her unique abilities, contributing to her rapid growth. Thus, he suggested that mass-producing aura experts might not be achievable. The king, seemingly conceding defeat, considered Errol's response. While Prince Errol contemplated his next move, he realized that, in theory, he could devise a training plan to suit the knights simply by observing them. However, he quickly dismissed the idea, as the thought of studying sweaty muscles was unappealing, not to mention the immense amount of work involved. Still, he didn't want to leave the king without any hope. He reassured the king that it might be possible to improve the knights' abilities, if not promote rapid growth, by providing them with appropriate training methods. However, he specified that this offer was exclusively for members of the royal family. Understanding the implications, the king agreed, recognizing the potential benefits this might bring to his lineage. Errol was pleased to see the king's understanding, as there was no need to strengthen the other nobles, who were like hyenas to the king and could potentially cause more trouble. The king firmly agreed to Errol's conditions, promising to share the secret method only within the royal family. With that, Prince Errol couldn't help but smile at the thought of his training technique being passed down through generations of royalty, almost like his personal diary becoming a national treasure. His humble smile soon transformed into a greedy grin. He is aware that the knights will need to undergo rigorous training for this transformation, and they will need to exhibit great perseverance. Several months later, a loud crash reverberates through the palace corridors, startling passing servants. Inside a training room, the king stands amidst the rubble and dust, soaked in sweat. He wipes his perspiration and reflects on his progress. He's finally reaching the level of a peak expert, and it surprises him that the training method, which is coming from Errol, who cannot use it due to his frail body, is effective. In fact, the king realizes that it's Errol who needs this training method more than anyone else. As a result, the king decides to take action to provide Prince Errol with some assistance. Meanwhile, in the concubine's castle garden, Prince Errol contentedly enjoys a plateful of cookies while Princess Kania sips her tea. They receive news of an exclusive knight selection. The servant confirms that these knights would be personally chosen by the king for Errol. He places a stack of applications on the table, mentioning that many talented knights, handpicked by the king himself, have volunteered for the role. Errol, cookie in hand, examines the documents. He notes that these applicants come from prestigious households, which a few years ago would have ignored him. With a self-satisfied smirk, he reclines in his chair, popping another cookie into his mouth. He finds it only natural that he has garnered such attention now that he's achieved success. However, he is aware that he doesn't actually need guards, as his skills are unmatched. While he continues munching on cookies, he contemplates his future and has no plans to flaunt his abilities, especially after the previous incident where Kania's life was endangered. Picking up a few applications, Errol questions the servant about whether it's true that he could have a maximum of 3 exclusive knights. The servant enthusiastically responds that the king mentioned he could have as many knights as he wished. Errol, slightly surprised, assures him that he doesn't need quite that many and resumes reviewing the applications. He finds the role of an interviewer rather agreeable. He resolves to take into account all relevant factors, including skills, personalities, and more, to make a fair decision. As he delves deeper into his decision-making process, he starts muttering to himself, contemplating his preferences. He doesn't want someone excessively muscular, he muses, but rather prefers a more feminine figure, essentially seeking eye candy. Azarella's thoughts wander, causing those around him to exchange confused glances, wondering what's happening. Suddenly, Errol produces a pair of glasses seemingly out of thin air, puts them on, and theatrically brandishes a quill. With a dramatic announcement, he declares the start of the interviews. Several weeks later, the knights gather for the interviews. Prince Errol breaks into a nervous sweat as he surveys the candidates he's selected. When he greets them, their unified response overwhelms him. "Greetings, Your Highness." To his dismay, the female candidates, despite their outstanding knightly qualifications, are far more muscular than he had envisioned, shattering his utopian dream. One of the knights notices his discomfort and inquires about his well-being. Errol assures them that he's fine despite his inner turmoil. Feeling somewhat defeated, Errol reminds himself that he can't express his dissatisfaction. After all, these knights are exceptional. Having trained tirelessly, he needs to put his personal preferences aside, so with renewed resolve, he announces the start of the interviews. As each knight explains their motivation for volunteering, Errol can't help but be taken aback by their strength, especially one muscular woman whose presence rivals that of a wild berserker. He realizes that choosing her would guarantee his safety. Another knight, exuding an aura of noble grace, stands out due to her distinct demeanor. The interviews progress smoothly with each candidate answering Errol's questions without difficulty. He asks them to wait outside while he deliberates. With the knights out of the room, Errol acknowledges that despite this being a formality, he can't conclude the process without selecting someone. So he begins his preparations, drawing mana from the air and activating the Origin Creation Qigong technique. The 6 divine abilities. This secret technique stimulates his brain to access abilities that are normally dormant. Although typically attained by a Taoist immortal after extensive training, for a former pro like Errol, it's as easy as a walk in the park. Invigorated by his newfound clairvoyance, Prince Errol proceeds with the second stage of the interviews. As each candidate steps into the room, he sees right through them, subsequently dismissing one after another with his all-seeing ability. Errol can perceive the true essence of the knight's minds and emotions. Though he doubts any of them are assassins, he remains vigilant about the possibility of spies, so he knows he must choose carefully. Suddenly, the next knight enters, and Errol is struck by the clarity and brilliance of her soul. The knight introduces herself as a Shafernal, an undeniably talented knight with a humble background, making Errol suspect there might be more to her story. Excited, he thinks he may have found a diamond in the rough and decides that as long as her secret doesn't affect him, she could be a good choice. Other than Asha, no other knight has caught Errol's attention so far. He knows he should pick at least two, and his mind briefly turns to the Berserker woman. Just as he's contemplating the final night, Saint Ajero introduces herself. She is a cheerful and carefree girl with a clear soul, and Errol notices that she seems very sociable. Her record shows that she has served in various knight orders across the kingdom, from the border to distant regions. When asked, Sena admits she has personal reasons for her extensive travels. Errol wonders if she's a problem child but observes no significant changes in her emotional color as he studies her. The interview concludes, and Prince Errol announces the successful candidates, Asha and Sena, which increases the total number of inhabitants in the concubine castle. Prince Tel quickly observes that Sena, despite her lighthearted demeanor during the interview, is quite serious when it comes to her duties. On the other hand, Asha behaves as expected, showing eagerness to evaluate their skills. Prince Errol brings the two new knights to a remote area, surprising them when he explains that he'd like to see their abilities firsthand. He knows that even though they are his knights in name only, it would be a problem if they remained aura practitioners. Hence, he needs to assess their skills and help them grow stronger. Asha agrees to demonstrate her abilities, and with childlike innocence, Prince Errol suggests they spar with each other. Sena and Asha agree to spar on their first day, seeing no harm in the idea. However, in Errol's mind, he anticipates a clash between two individuals of similar skills, showcasing their strengths without reservation. Giggling about his ingenious plan, Errol playfully asks his knights who among them is the stronger one, sparking their competitive spirit. Sensing an opportunity, Sena glances at Asha and confesses her curiosity about who the more skilled knight is. With the tension between them ignited, Prince Errol dons 3D glasses and eagerly awaits the upcoming duel between these two prideful knights, even wishing he had popcorn to accompany the entertaining fight. As Asha and Sena limber up for their sparring match, they turn to Prince Errol for guidance on whether there should be any rules. However, as he nonchalantly munches on popcorn, he advises them that their main focus should be to avoid getting hurt. Both knights unleash their auras, with Asha saying she'll go easy on Sena since Prince Errol insisted they be careful, and starts boasting about her practical experience. Asha responds confidently, assuring Sena that she doesn't need to hold back since she's confident in her own skills. The atmosphere between the two knights grows heavy, and it seems as though they might seriously fight instead of just sparring. Prince Errol reminds them not to take it too far and says the fight will start when he claps his hands. But before he can give the signal, the knights clash with each other, causing Prince Errol to be thrown off the arena. Picking himself up and looking disheveled, Prince Errol realizes that he did tell them to take it easy, though he understands their desire to show off their strength. As the fight begins, Prince Errol observes the duel keenly and begins to analyze their skills, noting that their bodies are already in excellent condition. Asha executes a mighty spear thrust, a move that could leave Sena vulnerable if mishandled. However, Sena stands resolute, and Prince Errol observes that she activated her aura within her eyes to skillfully dodge the attack and counter the spear's path. Errol notes that she relied on her sight rather than her senses to predict the attack, likening her instincts to a wild beast's. After dodging, Sena spots a window of opportunity to land a powerful punch on Asha's torso. Errol acknowledges the inherent drawback of spears, the wielder's vulnerability when an adversary closes in, and wonders how Asha will respond. To his astonishment, Asha delivers a swift kick that sends Sena staggering backward. Sena teases Asha for incorporating a kick into her spearwork, but Asha dismisses the jab, asserting that there's no rule forbidding it. Errol watches their intense combat, taking note of their escalating aura power. He suspects that their competitive spirit won't allow them to cease until blood is drawn. Deciding to intervene, Errol halts the match and approaches the knights, expressing his grasp of their abilities and pointing out areas for improvement. This leaves Asha and Sena puzzled. Errol elaborates, saying that Asha's focus on speed makes her impatient while Sena's reliance on close combat seems timid. Asha interjects, realizing that Errol was the one who guided the second princess, Kania, and deduces that their display was to receive similar guidance. Errol, surprised by Kania being mentioned, considers that Kania must have gained prestige after becoming an aura expert. He confirms Asha's suspicion, asserting that as his guards, they need to become stronger. He inquires whether they feel otherwise, to which both Asha and Sena bashfully admit that they don't want to be a burden to him. Errol responds nonchalantly, arguing that he won't lose anything by guiding his own guards. He then promptly initiates Errol's exclusive night special training plan. Sena remarks that their current location seems a bit cramped for training, but Prince Errol assures her that they aren't there for physical training. Instead, he plans to provide lectures on theoretical aspects. He suddenly pulls out a secret manual titled Introduction to Anyone Can Become a Knight, a pioneering guide that he plans to sell to other knights if it proves effective. However, after a few hours, both Sena and Asha are left bewildered. Asha struggles to grasp the concept of circulating mana throughout her body to enhance her aura, while Sena finds the entire material incomprehensible. This feedback leads Prince Errol to the conclusion that his guide isn't yet ready for public consumption. Nevertheless, he didn't expect the two knights to immediately grasp the complex material. Consequently, he begins his lecture. He explains that the amount of mana a person can store varies due to blocked mana paths in the knights' bodies. He warns them that recklessly exerting their strength to emit aura is akin to drawing water from a barrel with a fire hose. Not only is it incredibly wasteful, but it's also perilous. To emphasize the point, he dramatically slams the board and cautions them about the dangers of falling into a state of chi deviation, which he simplifies as becoming half a corpse. Both knights tremble with fear upon hearing this. To ease their worries, Errol counsels them on the importance of learning to naturally assimilate and retain significant quantities of aura within their bodies. He highlights the need to incorporate this into their daily routines, emphasizing efficient energy circulation. Errol guarantees that mastering this technique will revolutionize their use of aura. This explanation resonates with Sena and Asha, who nod in understanding. With that, Prince Errol proceeds to the next topic, tailoring the theory in class to suit each of his knights' unique strengths. Prince Errol begins with Sena, advising her to focus more on her aura manipulation. Sena retorts, claiming her current aura usage is satisfactory. This prompts Prince Errol to challenge her to concentrate her aura on her other arm and both legs simultaneously. Sena struggles with the task, demonstrating her limitation. She can only concentrate her aura in one place at a time. It's not that she can't envelop her entire body with aura, it's just that she instinctively directs it to areas of immediate need, leading to rapid aura depletion. Exhausted and frustrated, Sena collapses, admitting her inability to maintain simultaneous aura flow while keeping her senses alert. Observing her struggle, Prince Errol decides to intervene. He approaches Sena, holds her hands, and explains that focusing on the difference in body temperature could help her concentrate her senses on her palms, a trick to help her control her aura better. Gradually, Sena begins to sense the aura flow, and to Prince Errol's delight, a vibrant red aura illuminates both her hands. Sena expresses her gratitude for his guidance and compliments the prince on his soft hands, clasping them eagerly. Caught off guard by her behavior, Prince Errol gently reprimands her, insisting she focuses on the training. After some time, Sena masters the technique, her face glowing with the thrill of her newfound skill. However, Prince Errol senses something amiss but dismisses his doubts, satisfied with the training results. Asha is next in line for training. Prince Errol notes her impatience during the previous sparring match and criticizes her decision to kick Sena blindly, expecting her to respond with a hand-to-hand combat technique, despite Sena being more proficient in that area. He emphasizes that calmness is paramount in spearmanship and that she must rid herself of impatience. Asha questions the method of her training, asking if carrying Prince Errol on her back is meant to instill patience. Confirming her guess, he instructs her to concentrate until the burden of his weight dissipates, urging her to remain calm and focused. Feeling somewhat defeated, Asha acquiesces to his method. In another castle far removed from the training grounds, we see the queen in contemplation. She reviews a note delivered by a mysterious figure, her eyes scanning the message, which speaks of Prince Errol's latest ventures. Initially dismissing him as inconsequential, his actions have begun to pique her interest. With a flicker of annoyance, she feeds the note to the dancing flames of a nearby candle, watching as the paper chars and crumbles in her grasp. A realization washes over her, and a resolute decision hardens in her eyes. She must address the issue of Prince Errol herself. Within the verdant expanse of the concubine castle forest, Asha relentlessly presses on with her training. demonstrating her newfound might as she sends a tree splintering apart with one swift move. Under Prince Errol's guidance, she feels her strength surging, despite the intensity of the training. She contemplates whether she's truly worthy of the prince's focused guidance. The story then delves into Asha Pernal's past, revealing her origins as a noble from the Nada Funk Pernal family. The Pernals, while not particularly wealthy, led a peaceful existence in the rural outskirts, a tranquility shattered by famine brought on by monstrous invasions. As their home succumbed to flames and devastation, Asha recalls the heroic sacrifice of her father when he barricaded the door against the monster onslaught, urging his family to escape and entrusting young Asha with the future of their family, a responsibility that still weighs heavily on her. Time marched on, and the noble families that once shared cordial relations with the Pernals turned their backs on Asha. Left with no other choice, she enlisted herself in the ranks of the knights to sustain herself. Her innate martial prowess allowed her to awaken her aura swiftly, leading to her placement in the royal capital within the 15th Knight Order. This was the kingdom's lowest ranked order, a motley crew of the least respected knights. The worst among them was their leader, an indolent underachieving knight commander who had only achieved his rank due to his connections. Despite his age and being merely an aura beginner, the story hints at an unsettling encounter between Asha and the knight commander, with unwelcome advances from him under the pretense of offering her special training. These advances left a sour taste in her mouth. Frustrated, she channels her anger into another powerful strike, crushing yet another tree. She feels a sense of relief as she contemplates how satisfying it would be to vent her anger on the knight commander the next time they cross paths. She reflects on her initial desperation that led her to apply for the position of a guard, never imagining she would be accepted so readily. With this new opportunity, she could improve her family's living conditions. She just needed to save a bit more money to cover her brother's academy fees. As she reflects on all the recent good fortune she's experienced, she can't help but attribute it to Prince Errol. She makes a mental promise to repay his kindness, no matter the effort required. Meanwhile, we delve into Sena's reasons for choosing to serve as a guard. She wakes up at dawn, and when a servant commends her early rising habit, she modestly attributes it to her still getting used to her new responsibilities. She ends the conversation on a positive note by thanking the servant and wishing him a pleasant day. Sena's roots lie in a family of mercenaries who grew up in a tribe that served no single country, constantly on the move. Her father eventually revealed to her that their way of life was changing due to a period of peace that reduced their income. He urged her to go out into the world, leaving the tribe to handle the stubborn old men clinging to their mercenaries' ways. He believed it was time for the younger generation to forge a new path. Sena had no qualms about leaving her tribe and found the knight training well within her capabilities. However, her father's feud with a corrupt lord led to his untimely demise. Naively believing he could reform entrenched traditions, this memory of her father's actions reminds her of a similar incident involving another knight. In this past episode, Sena courageously confronted the knight for unjustly labeling innocent villagers as bandits, questioning his moral integrity, and beating him severely. Upon reflection on this event, she realizes she has no regrets and feels a profound sense of relief. Since then, Sena has often been assigned to perilous regions. Eventually, she chose to volunteer as an escort knight for Prince Errol. Despite the hardships she faced, she feels oddly fortunate about her new role. Prince Errol, while appearing idle at times, possesses prodigious intellectual prowess. His innovative creations have significantly boosted the kingdom's economy, and his theories assisted the second princess in rapidly ascending to the status of an aura expert. These achievements have earned him the moniker the Great Grey Sage. Elsewhere, the 13-year-old Prince Errol Ernesia enjoys a luxurious moment under a canopy, celebrating his successful recent months of laziness. Within the castle's walls, the king is in council with his retainers, discussing the upcoming 14th birthday and coming-of-age ceremony for the third Prince Errol. They contemplate the opportunity it provides for the multi-talented prince. The king, with an air of doubt, listens as the retainers ponder the availability of suitable estates to bestow upon Prince Errol. Count Tenbest is the first to voice his thoughts, suggesting that the ceremony might provide an excellent opportunity for Prince Errol. The king questions their intent, suspecting they plan to assign a relative's territory to Prince Errol. To his surprise, they unanimously agree, confident that no objections will arise, leading him to suppress his anger. Just then, Count Tenbest drops another bombshell, stating that Errol's acclaim has reached foreign territories, and he subtly suggests that the king might want to consider Errol as a potential heir. This provokes the king into a furious response, vehemently asserting that the crown prince is the indisputable successor, and that Errol has no ambition for the throne. However, Duke Gast interjects, warning the king of rumors spreading in other countries about Errol's suitability for the throne and the growing support among young noblemen for the third prince. The king, troubled by this, reluctantly agrees to consider the suggestions and asks the nobles to recommend suitable territories for Errol. Back in his office, Prince Errol opens a letter informing him of the outcome of the king's meeting. Recognizing the nobles' ploy to exile him under the pretense of granting him territory, he bursts into laughter, excitedly explaining that he now has his own territory. He disregards any interest in the throne, viewing the nobles as potential threats, and firmly believes that having his own territory far exceeds the questionable honor of being surrounded by such scheming individuals. Filled with joy, he enthusiastically shares his plans to settle in his new territory and build a house, finally achieving a sense of independence and control. Errol's newly acquired land is situated in the frigid realm of Fahilia in the north, where snow covers the landscape year-round, and careless visits can lead to a frosty demise. Reading the description of his new territory, Prince Errol acknowledges the challenging farming conditions and discerns the ill intentions of the nobles. With determination, he abruptly closes his book and announces his departure, scheduled for 1 month after his coming-of-age ceremony. He calculates that he has a year and a month to make the necessary preparations. Addressing his assembled retainers, he stresses the magnitude of their task, emphasizing that independence from other territories is no small endeavor and suitable only for the resolute. He pledges to assist those who cannot join him in finding alternative positions while encouraging those who choose to stay to act promptly, receiving unanimous agreement from the room. As the servants disperse, Prince Errol finds solace in knowing that his alchemist team and most of his close associates will remain at his side. However, Sena can't help but express her discontent about their destination, Fahilia. Curious, Prince Errol inquiries about her concerns. Sena recounts her year-long deployment there, sharing stories of extreme cold and peril but also noting the relatively low monster population, suggesting it may not be as dangerous as it seems. Prince Errol, however, interprets her effort to find positives as an indication of Fahilia's harshness and empathizes with the scheming noble's decision to send him there. Yet, he reassures them that the situation isn't as dire as he initially feared, considering it a manageable challenge. Lost in his thoughts, Prince Errol remains unaware of his guard's watchful eyes, filled with concern. Even Sena's eyes well up with tears as she contemplates the challenges that lie ahead for the prince. In unity, they silently pledge to protect Prince Errol, no matter the circumstances. However, Prince Errol misunderstands their intentions, believing there is a miscommunication between them. Later in the week, Asha and Sena stand guard outside Prince Errol's chambers. Asha initiates a conversation, urging Sena to be truthful. Confused by Asha's meaning, Sena seeks clarification, and Asha reminds her of their earlier discussion about the tundra. Sena suddenly grasps the chilling truth about Fahilia, realizing it's a desolate tundra with nothing but biting cold. She jokingly asks if Asha prefers to stay at the castle, to which Asha responds with an annoyed look, indicating her determination to follow Prince Errol, even if their destination is more challenging than Fahilia. Asha expresses her surprise at the noble's decision to exile the prince, but Sena remains optimistic, assuring Asha not to worry excessively. She believes that when Asha looks into Prince Errol's eyes, she will see that he has a plan, even if she doesn't fully understand it. She senses a lack of frustration in his eyes, leading them both to trust the prince. They resolve to keep their families informed of their circumstances by sending letters home, ensuring their loved ones are updated on their situation. Inside his chambers, Prince Errol exhales a sigh of relief. He had finally completed the blueprint he had been diligently working on. However, his thoughts turned to his mother, who was undoubtedly heartbroken about his impending departure. Pacing in circles, he contemplated his next steps. He had already instructed the maid not to inform his mother about the circumstances of the territory. Still, he remained concerned about her safety and the looming threat, similar to what had happened to Kania. Prince Errol pondered how to establish a means of communication, such as ultra-long-distance communication spheres, teleportation, magic circles, or magic scrolls. He even contemplated hiring a dedicated magician. After weighing his options, he concluded that he needed to carefully consider everything. For the time being, he focused on preparing for the impending journey to the harsh territory, which oddly appealed to him. It seemed like an ideal haven for a former professional like himself to lead a tranquil existence. Errol's preparation for independence. Step 1. A group of magicians appeared before Prince Errol, ready to offer their assistance. Among them were Payan and his disciples, familiar faces that surprised the prince. After exchanging greetings, Errol disclosed that he was about to share a secret with them. Payan solemnly pledged to keep the secret confidential. Prince Errol unrolled a blueprint, explaining that they needed to create an item based on its design as quickly as possible. Payan, scrutinizing the plan, realized that this was no ordinary artifact. He looked at Errol in surprise, questioning whether the prince had designed it himself or received it from someone else. Nonchalantly, Errol confirmed that he had drawn the blueprint, an improved version of the brain-activating artifact known as the Sage's Necklace, which he had previously gifted to Kania. Payan was astounded to learn that, according to the blueprint, this new design promised twice the effectiveness at a tenth of the production cost. Marveling at the young prince's innovative brilliance, Prince Errol inquired if they could manufacture it, and Payan was confident they could since the blueprint was flawless. All they needed were the materials. However, Payan, knowing the creator of the original artifact, was at a loss for words. Sensing his hesitation, Prince Errol had planned for this and revealed a sack of gold coins from a drawer. He explained that this fee was for their silence about the project. Payan remained unfazed, so Errol unveiled another sack for materials and labor, generously promising more gold for future transactions. This grand display caused the magicians' composure to crumble, and they vowed to fulfill the prince's request. Errol, pleased with their response, looked forward to their collaboration, expecting the completion of the project within a month. Little did they know about his boundless ambition. Errol believed that money was the most effective way to command obedience. A few days later, the magicians returned, weary but successful, presenting their creation as the Grey Sage's Necklace. Prince Errol swiftly dismissed the title upon examining the necklace. He was pleasantly surprised by its quality and swift completion. With a prototype approved, he instructed them to mass-produce the necklace, clarifying that he needed 50 more pieces. Despite their evident fatigue, Payan and the magicians committed to fulfilling the order. As they departed, Prince Errol wore a smug smile, reflecting on their plight and musing about the harsh and often unfair nature of life. However, for someone like him who had lived 100 lifetimes, the perspective was quite different.